The Asteri House family so powerful they can bring down flying birds with their sheer presence and hold even the emperor in the palm of their hand. They are the ultimate prestigious magic house, famous for casting out even their own blood if they lack talent. Standing in the middle of the laundry room, the head butler gathers the whispering maids and asks, "Did you hear? It seems the eldest young master failed his mana awakening again." The other maid gasps in surprise, exclaiming, "Really? That's his third mana shock already." "Shh, watch your mouth. What if someone hears you?" A servant steps out cautiously, pausing mid-stride as they try to keep their gossip quiet. But failing his awakening 3 times? I can see why the young master lost his mind. Another maid chimes in, "I know, he was always eccentric, but this time it's especially bad." "What is he doing?" asks one of the maids in confusion. The butler turns to her in surprise, replying, "You don't know?" He opened his eyes, muttered gibberish to himself for a while. Deep in his chamber, the young master covers his face in deep distress, muttering incomprehensible words to himself while his maids watch on, completely helpless and worried. And then suddenly bolted out of the mansion, barefooted, sprinting headfirst into the raging storm as the servants scream after him in shock. He dropped to his knees and started digging in the dirt with his bare hands, ignoring the cold rain pouring down on him under the full moon. He dug until his hands were raw and bleeding, and do you know what was clutched in his fingertips? With a wildly manic laugh and eyes wide with pure madness under the flashing lightning, he held up his prize, a weed. "A weed?" The head butler and the head maid exclaim in absolute disbelief, their eyes wide with confusion. Is pulling a few weeds really something to make a fuss about? He was always a bit odd anyway. The butler sighs, wiping sweat from his brow, but the maids immediately snap back. That's not the point. He has literally done nothing but pull weeds, yet the young master looks absolutely blissful, smiling under the bright sun as a system notification pops up, confirming he has acquired blue basil. "Ah, another productive day," he sighs contentedly, looking down at a large pile of freshly gathered blue basil as the system notifications pile up. Suddenly, a rustling sound in the bushes catches his attention, causing him to break out in a cold sweat as he looks back cautiously. Finding nothing but peaceful woods, the young man smiles gently and carefully packs the fresh blue flowers into his pouch, appreciating the beautiful day. "I used to be a team leader at a typical small company in South Korea, but I couldn't stand the power trips from my boss and the company anymore, so I quit on a whim. With nothing but time on my hands after quitting, I logged into a nostalgic game I used to play like crazy during my job hunting days. But as the screen loads, I can only mutter, 'What the?' Every single character I had poured my blood and sweat into was gone, leaving me staring at a blank character creation screen asking if I would like to make a new one. It was painful since I had so many max-level characters, but since I had already experienced all the endgame content, I started fresh and bought a crafting system package. I couldn't help but cheer. Talk about returning players' luck. I hit the jackpot. Well, I have plenty of time. Let's enjoy a relaxing life as a life skill player. I'm done dealing with stress, even in a game," I whistle happily, sitting in front of my monitor. That was my last memory as Beckyua. When I next opened my eyes, I had become Lion Asteri inside the MMOPG in the world, and 50 years had already passed since the game's final chapter. Thank goodness I retained the original owner's memories, because adjusting at first was incredibly difficult. I was so stressed I thought I'd lose my hair, not knowing things everyone else took for granted. He inspects his collection of aqua rosemary, a special herb that carries a rich ocean scent and yields a salty seawater taste when consumed raw, bringing him closer to completing his novice herbalist achievements. "Oh, already? And an exclusive shop too?" he mutters in surprise as a system notification informs him that the shilling shop will unlock once he accumulates enough currency. "I wonder if the exclusive shop opens at around 100,000 shillings, he ponders happily, continuing to gather his herbs. With a swift motion, he plucks another batch of blue basil, his collection growing larger by the minute. Suddenly, a look of sudden realization and surprise washes over his face, a cold sweat dripping down his cheek. The Asteri House is a strict meritocracy, so it wouldn't be surprising if Lion, who failed his mana awakening, got kicked out immediately. But I need money if I want to make a living out there. How can I save up money and safely escape this place? He wonders as he sneaks through the dark paths, pausing suddenly when he spots something in the brush. Should I try to bribe the family head, he wonders, imagining himself offering a small gift to a stern chibi version of the powerful patriarch. Then I need to raise my stats quickly and make something good to give him. A blue effect? He gasps as a glowing blue light catches his eye from the bushes. Spotting the rare find, he bolts forward with determined haste, eager to investigate the glowing anomaly. He carefully digs into the soil and plucks the sparkling plant from the ground with practiced ease. A system window appears, revealing a 3-star red sunfern, a rare plant whose sun-curled red tips are safe to eat raw and are rumored to clear distracting thoughts when consumed. Another new achievement? He cheers in sheer delight, holding the glowing fern high with a wide, ecstatic smile. Overjoyed by his incredible luck, his face lights up with sparkling eyes and pure happiness. Huh? Oh, Granny Sylvia? He asks, looking up in surprise as a powerful old woman with white hair appears before him, her level marked with mysterious question marks. He politely holds out the glowing red sunfern to her, showing off his rare find. The rare 3-starred fern glows with an ethereal light in his dirty, soil-stained hand. Granny Sylvia stares at the plant in silence, her expression unreadable as the narration notes, "I guess what the servant said is true." Gently patting the young master's head, she looks down at him with a soft expression, leaving him pleasantly surprised. She takes the glowing, sparkling red sunfern into her own hand, inspecting it closely. "Back now," she commands quietly, her tone firm yet calm as she instructs him to return. He looks back at her with a startled and slightly worried expression, wondering what she's thinking. The family is a strict meritocracy, the law of the jungle, ruthlessly applied even to their own family. A colossal blue-striped tiger, the living embodiment of raw power, crouches menacingly over its dark prey under a crescent moon, radiating an aura of absolute dominance. Lion realizes that his grandfather, Patrick Asteri, stern family head and his primary target for affinity farming, is summoning him much sooner than expected, despite his lack of magic talent. Lion breaks out in a cold sweat, nervously wondering what he should do since he hasn't even prepared a proper bribe for the family head yet. Suddenly, Lion looks up with wide, startled eyes, gasping in surprise as someone catches his attention. Sylvia, the stern maid, turns back with a sharp, piercing gaze, her expression cold and unyielding as she observes the young master. Trying to play it cool despite his immense nervousness, Lion scratches his cheek and sheepishly smiles, saying, "I have a small favor to ask." High above in his grand sunlit office, the formidable Lord Patrick Asteri sits at his desk reviewing reports, murmuring a cold, "I see," as his butler stands before him. The butler reports that ever since the young master woke up, he has done absolutely nothing but pick weeds, as Patrick casually burns the report to ashes in his gloved hand. The butler bows deeply as Patrick scowls, noting that the young master still cannot sense or control any magic power. Patrick Asteri, the stern lord of Asteri House, clicks his tongue in deep irritation, his face contorted with disapproval and impatience. With a polite bow, the loyal butler excuses himself from the lord's office, maintaining his perfect composure. As the butler leaves, Lord Patrick calls out Sylvia as a dark purple shadow magic begins to materialize in the room. Sylvia emerges silently from the dark magical shadows, standing respectfully before Patrick's desk as he turns to address her. Patrick's face contorts in anger, a vein popping on his forehead as he fumes over the reports regarding his grandson. Sylvia listens quietly as Patrick rants, her expression neutral and calm in the face of her master's growing frustration. Shocked and utterly outraged by Lion's bizarre requests, Patrick barks in disbelief. "What? Later?" as sparks of anger flare around him. Clenching his fist tightly in boiling rage, Patrick shakes with anger, growling, "How dare he?" In a fit of explosive fury, Patrick roars, "Absolutely not. Tell him that if he doesn't come see me right this instant." Engulfed in a blazing fire of pure wrath, Patrick commands, "I'll burn that entire forest to the ground," while Sylvia politely bows and promises to deliver the message exactly as ordered. Sylvia vanishes entirely, leaving behind nothing but a swirling vortex of dark purple shadows in the empty room. Patrick peers into his magical scrying orb, only to see a vision of Lion happily digging up weeds with a bright, carefree smile, making him flush red with pure embarrassment and frustration. Patrick screams in absolute exasperation, completely unable to comprehend why his grandson has been wasting weeks pulling useless weeds. Meanwhile, back in his chamber, Lion wears a wildly ecstatic and slightly unhinged grin, thrilled to finally start his alchemy trials. Complex glass test tubes and beakers filled with glowing blue liquids simmer on the alchemy table, ready for the crafting process. Lion gazes at the luxurious high-grade alchemy equipment around him, completely amazed by the sheer quality of the tools at his disposal. Seeing the incredibly expensive, state-of-the-art laboratory equipment, Lion can't help but chuckle and think that being born with a silver spoon really is something else. Lion confidently rolls up his sleeves and checks his status window, determined to see his progress. A system menu appears showing that his gathering proficiency has reached level 5 and he has cleared the novice herbalist achievements, while his potion crafting skill remains at level 1. Lion reviews the alchemy hierarchy, dreaming of climbing from a humble apprentice to a master alchemist, a tier representing only the top 1% of players. With a focused expression, Lion tosses a rare red herb into the large cauldron to begin his first potion distillation. Wearing protective leather gloves, he vigorously stirs the herbal mixture inside the giant cauldron with a large wooden paddle. He carefully hovers his bare hand over the rising steam, sensing the temperature and concentration of the brewing potion. With a confident smile and a glowing golden aura surrounding him, Lion extends his hand over the cauldron and commands extraction. The crimson liquid bubbles and splashes violently inside the cauldron, reacting perfectly to his magical command. The refined red liquid flies gracefully through the air, pouring itself cleanly into the waiting glass vials. Holding up the glowing red vial, Lion cheers, "It worked!" as a system window confirms he has successfully crafted an Asteri-made lesser health potion. He firmly places the empty flask down on the desk, his mind turning to his stern grandfather as he whispers, "Grandfather." Surrounded by a dark aura and manic laughter, Lion breaks out in a sinister grin, muttering, "Just you wait," as he plans his next move. System notifications continuously pop up, showing his novice alchemist achievement progress climbing steadily towards completion with each potion crafted. As dawn breaks through the window, an exhausted Lion lets out a heavy groan, feeling completely drained from his endless crafting session. Slumped in his chair with empty potion bottles scattered all over the desk, Lion realizes that forcing down health potions to recover his stamina when his health is already at 100 is absolute torture. Grimacing in disgust, Lion squeezes his eyes shut and forces himself to swallow another bitter red potion. Suddenly, a glowing light envelops him as a system message congratulates him on reaching apprentice level 4 in alchemy and unlocking a new recipe, prompting Lion to cheer, finally! Eager to see what he can craft next, Lion opens the newly unlocked recipe window to read the details. Clenching his fists with a determined and excited grin, Lion pumps himself up, ready to brew the ultimate gift. He drops a selection of fresh blue basils, rosemary, and red sunferns into the steaming cauldron to begin the new recipe. With intense focus, Lion stirs the herbal concoction, watching the green leaves mix with the bubbling water. Lion reasons that since his grandfather has overflowing mana, a mana potion would be useless, and a health potion is unnecessary since he has a professional medical mage on standby. But what about a potion that recovers mental fatigue, he wonders, staring into the bright, glowing magical aura of his creation. Wiping the sweat from his brow, Lion smiles with satisfaction, knowing this is the perfect gift for a busy patriarch buried under mountains of work every single day. An archmage can keep his body active with mana to push through physical exhaustion, the narration explains, but mental fatigue is a different story, as the powerful Patrick Asteri sits heavily in his chair, deeply worn out by his endless duties. Back in the laboratory, Lion rolls up his sleeves and puts on his protective leather gloves, letting out a thoughtful as he prepares for his next major brewing attempt. Bubbles rise to the surface of the swirling, sparkling blue liquid inside the cauldron, reacting beautifully to his careful preparation as the process reaches the state described. Lion smiles confidently, watching the magical liquid flow through his high-grade glass distillation apparatus with perfect timing. He gently places his hand near the glass tube, carefully monitoring the temperature and concentration of the rising vapors. With an intense focus and a glowing aura surrounding him, Lion extends his hand toward the apparatus and commands extraction. The refined blue essence reacts instantly to his magic, glowing brilliantly as it climbs through the spiraled glass tubes. As the sparkling liquid flows, it carries a stream of glowing bubbles containing vivid flashbacks of Lion's happiest memories from his past life, including his childhood, graduation, and career triumphs. A final, intensely concentrated droplet of the sparkling blue liquid falls gracefully into the waiting glass beaker. A system message congratulates him on his incredible success. Successfully crafted mental fatigue recovery potion. Clears mental exhaustion by recalling happy memories. Has no effect on those with no happy memories. Lion is ecstatic as he holds up the glowing blue flask, cheering, "Least skilled level 8 to get that. This is amazing. It's the perfect bribe." Lion gasps in surprise, noting that just smelling the potion has cleared his head, while a glowing system notification confirms, "You have crafted a potion beyond your current level." Suddenly, a massive magic circle erupts beneath Lion's feet, prompting a system notification. A path to forming a mana circle has opened. The talent, mana, the magical aura swirls violently around Lion as the notification continues. Arrangement has been activated. You can now control mana with far greater precision than others. Panels capture the rush of magical power enveloping Lion's body and the glowing bottle of potion in his hand. Lion closes his eyes and takes a deep breath, fully absorbing the warm, flowing sensation of mana circulating through his body for the very first time. Opening his eyes with an amazed and joyful expression, Lion looks at the swirling blue magical energy around his hand and whispers, "Is this mana?" In a burst of pure comedic relief, cartoon centaurs dance and sing joyfully around a massive bubble of ecstatic laughter. Lion strikes a wildly triumphant pose, his face red with joy and a playful sticker on his tongue as he celebrates his dual success of brewing the potion and awakening his mana. Outside his door, the sudden echo of Lion's manic screaming, "Finally! Finally!" startles the staff in the hallway. Lion's hysterical laughter of "ha-ha! Ah-ha-ha!" rings through the halls, while a shadowed butler watches his bizarre celebration through the cracked doorway. The butler stares in stunned silence, deeply perplexed and concerned by the young master's seemingly unhinged behavior. With a quiet, concerned sigh, the butler steps away from the laboratory door, his footsteps echoing softly in the dark hallway. The butler walks down the long, sunlit marble corridor, carrying the strange news of the young master's behavior back to the family head. Meanwhile, back in his chamber, a relaxed Lion slumps comfortably into his chair with his hands behind his head, thinking, "Yes, this is it. At this rate, making my escape will be a breeze." Outside the window, a gentle breeze rustles the curtains as bright, warm morning sunlight floods the room. Lion closes his eyes with a peaceful, satisfied smile, savoring his hard-earned success. Suddenly, Lion's peaceful rest is abruptly cut short as his eyes snap wide open in sheer shock. A minimalist overview shows Lion frozen in his chair behind a massive, cluttered desk, muttering a blank as an unexpected voice says, "Oh." The scene shifts to the grand spires of the Asteri Castle under a brilliant blue sky, with a speech bubble at the top calling out, "Grandfather." Bright morning light streams into the grand, quiet office of the family head, casting long shadows across the floor. Lord Patrick Asteri stands with his back turned, looking out the large window with a heavy sigh as Sylvia, the old maid, silently reviews stacks of paperwork. Patrick proudly recalls his heroic past as a legendary warrior fighting dragons, thinking, "Who am I? I am Patrick Asteri, a key member of the Heroes Party." He remembers his absolute authority as the head of House Asteri, who could establish an independent state at any moment. "That is who I am." Back in the present, Lord Patrick stands with crossed arms and a stern, irritated expression, feeling the exhausting weight of his duties. Sylvia looks over at her master, staying silent as she observes his deep mental weariness. Lord Patrick turns to Sylvia to hear her report, his face tense with frustration over his grandson's antics. Sylvia's thoughts appear in a speech bubble, gently noting, "The young master looked truly happy while brewing that potion." Sylvia recalls watching through the cracked door earlier, seeing Lion proudly and happily holding up his glowing blue creation. Lord Patrick scratches his head in sheer disbelief and frustration, letting out a weary groan as he mutters, "What?" In the corridor, a servant guides Lion to the office, saying, "The family head has been waiting for you," to which a relaxed Lion replies, "I figured as much." Inside the office, Lord Patrick and Sylvia turn their heads toward the door, expecting the young master's arrival. The double doors swing open as the butler announces, "The eldest young master has arrived," and Lion walks in with a polite, slightly sheepish smile. Lion walks up to the desk and bows respectfully to his grandfather, saying, "For the delay, grandfather." Lord Patrick sits at his desk, arms crossed as he glares down at Lion with a cold, intimidating gaze and demands, "What took you so long?" From a side angle, Lion stands straight and composed in front of his stern grandfather's massive desk, with Sylvia watching nearby. Lion calmly begins to address his grandfather, while Sylvia watches with an anxious sweat drop, praying the encounter goes smoothly. Sylvia looks increasingly worried and tense, while Lion maintains his perfectly calm, polite smile in the face of his grandfather's intense pressure. Lion raises his hands politely, preparing to explain his delayed arrival and present his special gift. Looking from behind Lion, he gestures toward Patrick, ready to pitch the ultimate bribe to win his grandfather's favor. Lion politely places the flask of glowing blue potion onto his grandfather's grand wooden desk, presenting his hard-earned creation. Resting on the polished desk, the high-grade glass flask glows with a swirling, sparkling blue liquid that seems to ripple with magical energy. Lion looks at his grandfather with a gentle, warm smile, hoping his special gift will be well received. As Lion stands straight and composed before his grandfather, the narration notes that something far more fundamental about him has changed. Lord Patrick looks down at the glowing blue potion sitting on his desk, his stern gaze softening slightly. Staring at the beautiful blue elixir, Lord Patrick realizes with a swell of emotion, "So you were making this all this time, for me." Touched by his grandson's unexpected affection, Lord Patrick's face blushes red in sheer joy as he squeals internally, "How sweet of you." Suddenly catching himself, Lord Patrick's expression hardens as he snaps, "But I transcended humanity long ago." Glaring down at Lion, Patrick proudly boasts, "My body's immune to almost any poison, so a simple potion like this won't do anything to me," while Lion warmly replies, "I worked incredibly hard on it." While Lord Patrick's inner self bursts with ecstatic laughter and joy, his outward face remains perfectly cold and stern as he asks, "Is that all you have to say?" To which Lion politely replies, "Yes." With a polite bow and a gentle smile, Lion bids his grandfather farewell and prepares to leave the office. Lord Patrick and Sylvia stand in silence as Lion walks out of the grand office, quietly shutting the double doors behind him. Once the door is fully closed, Lord Patrick drops his stern facade, coughing awkwardly with a bright blush and glowing sparkles of absolute delight surrounding him. Staring blankly at the door, Lord Patrick's stern and curious expression returns as he ponders his grandson's sudden change. He reaches out and picks up the flask of glowing blue liquid, gently swirling the sparkling content to inspect its quality. Sylvia's eyes glow with a red, sinister light as she suggests, "Shall I send that to analyze it, just in case?" But Lord Patrick quickly replies, "No, that's unnecessary." Sitting at his desk, Lord Patrick cradles the glowing bottle in both hands, deeply intrigued by the effort his grandson put into brewing it. Watching her master, Sylvia lets out a soft, knowing smile, pleased to see Patrick so secretly happy. Bowing politely, Sylvia prepares to depart as she says, "Then this old woman shall take her leave as well," before vanishing into a swirl of dark shadows. Now, completely alone in his grand office, Lord Patrick quietly raises the flask of blue liquid, marveling at its beautiful, starry, magical aura. A warm, genuine smile breaks across Lord Patrick's stern face as he looks at the potion, feeling deeply touched by his grandson's unexpected gift. With a quiet sigh of anticipation, Lord Patrick unseals the flask, ready to try the special brew Lion made just for him. Lord Patrick tilts his head back and takes a small sip of the blue liquid, which immediately condenses into glowing droplets of pure mental refreshment. As the potion takes effect, a gentle, soothing breeze rustles through the office, surrounding Lord Patrick's chair with magical green leaves. A wave of deep relaxation washes over Patrick as his consciousness begins to drift into a peaceful dream state. As the peaceful darkness takes over, the narration explains past memories, scattered like fragments, drift by as he catches glimpses of his younger self. Slumping back in his comfortable chair, Lord Patrick lets his gloved hand rest loosely as the narration notes, "Soon I fell into a deep sleep." Resting peacefully in his grand chair with the empty flask nearby, Lord Patrick sleeps as the narration reflects, "But the dream I had that day was incredibly peaceful and sweet." Slowly, Lord Patrick's eyelid flutters open, revealing his glowing purple pupil as he returns to reality. Rubbing his forehead as he sits up at his desk, Patrick wonders in amazement, "To think that I actually fell asleep," while the narration adds, "Yet I felt neither groggy nor tired." Lord Patrick looks down at the flask in his hand, noting that it is almost completely empty save for a tiny droplet of the blue liquid, and mutters. He turns his head toward the window, looking out at the beautiful, bright morning sky and the rustling green leaves. Feeling completely rejuvenated and clear-headed, Lord Patrick smiles warmly, realizing his grandson's potion worked perfectly, and thinking, "He is so?" Looking out the window as a gentle breeze carries fresh leaves into his office, Patrick's warm thoughts are cut short as he frowns and sighs. Is weak? The scene transitions to the brilliant blue sky outside, where the bright morning sun shines warmly through puffy white clouds. In the castle courtyard, two maids carrying a laundry basket talk to a male servant, with one maid mentioning Rion. Whispering behind her hand, one of the maids says with surprise, "I heard the young master did something completely bizarre again," while the other smiles in amusement. The male servant bursts out laughing hysterically, pointing his finger and shouting, "Ha ha, no way, that's hilarious." Suddenly, a loud, sharp crash echoes behind them, startling the male servant and causing him to jump in sheer fright. The stern, red-haired head maid stands nearby holding a wooden bucket, reprimanding them as she says, "Come on, let's get back to work," making the servants sweat in panic. The head maid walks over and confronts the male servant, her expression tense as she demands answers. Holding his laundry bucket, the male servant stammers nervously with cold sweat running down his face, saying, "Yes, those rumors are..." Angered by the staff's disrespectful gossiping, the head maid yells, furious that they would slander the young master. Hannah clenches her fist and barks angrily, yet they forget his grace over some ridiculous rumors, while the terrified servant behind her stammers, "Hannah, behind you!" Cold sweat drips down Hannah's face as she freezes in terror, realizing Sylvia has appeared right behind her, saying, "If you do not mind, I would like to know." The text bubble looms ominously over the tense scene, finishing Sylvia's demand, "The details of those rumors as well." Sylvia clasps her lace-gloved hands together with a sweet, polite, closed-eye smile, yet radiating an incredibly dark, suffocating magical pressure. Sunlight streams through the thick canopy of trees, casting long shadows on the stone ground. The scene shifts back to the magnificent, towering spires of the Asteri Castle under a brilliant blue sky, as Sylvia enters the office and says, "I apologize for being late." Standing at his desk, Lord Patrick turns his head to look back at Sylvia, asking, "Urgent come up?" To which Sylvia gently replies, In the silent courtyard, servants are seen leaving the castle under the cover of night, carrying their belongings. The narration reflects, just keeping the household in order. Lord Patrick listens with a furrowed brow, a drop of cold sweat rolling down his cheek as the weight of the rumors and secrets grows heavier. Sylvia stands quietly by the desk, staring down at the empty glass flask which once contained the glowing blue potion that could achieve the impossible. A vibrant pink magic circle erupts around the potion bottle, analyzing its composition with brilliant, crackling energy. Lord Patrick's eye widens in pure shock as Sylvia delivers her report, stating, "This is not something the young master could have made. This is..." Sweat drips from Sylvia's tense face as she stares at the bottle in her hand, realizing the terrifying implication of what she has discovered. The narration recounts the legend of a savior who vanished 50 years ago after ending the war with the demon race, a figure whom no labyrinth could ever hold. The story continues to describe this legendary hero as a monumental figure whom even the gods themselves hesitated to oppose. The text boxes wonder, perhaps the only one who could find the hidden contract in this house's labyrinth and finally free me? Sylvia clenches her lace-gloved hands tightly as she concludes her thoughts. The only person. Looking at Lord Patrick, Sylvia says this is something only the hero could obtain. But Patrick cautiously responds, "We shouldn't jump to conclusions just yet." Looking down at the beautiful flask on his desk, Lord Patrick ponders, there's no way Rian is the hero. Looking back at her memories, Sylvia's thoughts turn to her sister as she whispers, "I want you to feel the same sense of relief that I did, sister." Turning to Sylvia, Lord Patrick gently explains, "I thought Rian's potion might help you, even if only a little." Lord Patrick bursts into a hearty, roaring laugh that echoes through his grand office. Sylvia's eyes glow with a sinister red light as she smiles, saying, "Do you know what the most useless thing in the world is? It's worrying about a witch. We're born with a 1,000-year lifespan, a body free from disease." Lord Patrick listens with a nervous sweat drop, while Sylvia maintains her polite, confident smile. Bowing gracefully, Sylvia begins to vanish into a dark, swirling mist, saying, "I will gladly accept your kind thoughts." Left alone in the quiet office, Lord Patrick looks deeply concerned as he softly mutters, "Sister." Lion stands politely in the office, and Lord Patrick looks at him, noting, "You look like you have something on your mind." From his high-backed chair, Lord Patrick stares down at his grandson with a cold, intimidating glare. A speech bubble pops up on a whimsical cat-pattern background, asking, "Is it because you can't eat greasy food at your age?" Lord Patrick pops an anger vein in hilarious chibi form, yelling, "Why, rascal?" while Lion playfully giggles and starts to explain, "If it's..." Suddenly catching himself, Lord Patrick flinches with cold sweat, realizing, "Oh, correct." Lord Patrick looks at Lion and seriously asks, "Can you make a higher quality potion than the one you gave me?" Lion sweat drops and looks away, trying to think of how to answer his grandfather's sudden request. Lion recalls his struggles with crafting, thinking, "I can't find any more one-star herbs, and that last one was just a lucky fluke, mostly gear-dependent." But Lord Patrick sits firmly with his hands clasped, waiting intensely for his grandson's reply. Lion keeps his gaze lowered, deeply considering the difficulty of the task before him. In a split-screen panel, Lord Patrick's piercing violet eyes glare intensely, causing Lion to react with sheer shock and terror. Lion imagines a ridiculous scenario where his grandfather tries to act cool by gifting the potion to Sylvia, making him blush and think that's not it. Lion rapidly shakes his head to clear his head, rubbing his chin as the caption notes, "I said." Lord Patrick looks absolutely dumbfounded and outraged by Lion's reaction. Lion suddenly bolts out of the office, shouting back, "Just wait and see, grandfather," while Patrick is left yelling in frustration. Clutching his fist in determination, Lion grins widely and declares, "I will absolutely make it happen." Standing behind his desk, a baffled Lord Patrick reaches out his hand, unable to believe his grandson's sudden exit. Walking down the path under the bright sky, Lion begins to worry, thinking, but how am I supposed to make a 3-star potion? Walking through the lush forest, Lion reasons, there's not enough time to just mindlessly grind levels to make a good potion. Even if I buy high-grade herbs, I won't be able to use them properly. It would be better to just buy a pre-made potion with that money. Suddenly, a brilliant idea strikes Lion as he muses, "Oh, come to think of it, should I check out the shilling shop? There might be some pretty useful materials." A golden, archaic screen pops up in front of Lion. Preview unlocked for items under 100,000 shillings. You can now view a portion of the item list. Item descriptions have been hidden. The item shop shows high-priced mundane items, sharp scissors for 10,000 shillings, standard fishing rod for 10,000 shillings, and an old key for 10,000 shillings, prompting Lion to complain, "Is this key gold-plated or something?" In a chibi state, Lion taps the screen in utter disbelief, asking, "Unbelievable, are the other tabs like this too?" He switches to the food tab, only to find Magic Seasoning A and Magic Seasoning B, each costing an absurd 10,000 shillings. Lion rests his chin on his finger as he walks through the sunlit woods, deep in thought about how to proceed. The text bubble floats against a backdrop of clouds and trees, stating simply, "high-quality tools." The scene shifts to a large, rustic blacksmith workshop with a brick chimney under a warm, golden sky. Inside the hot forge, a stout, muscular blacksmith with a braided red beard is powerfully hammering a glowing bar of metal on his anvil, sending sparks flying everywhere. The apprentice stands at the doorway of the roaring forge, shouting, "No, I'm busy as hell, why are you calling me?" while the blacksmith ignores him and continues to hammer away. The massive red-bearded blacksmith pauses his hammering, slightly turning his head to listen. The towering blacksmith turns around to face the door, where the nervous assistant stands with Lion waiting politely behind him. The stout red-bearded blacksmith looks completely startled, his eyes wide in sheer shock as the speech bubble below asks, "Are you the master of this blacksmith shop?" A handsome young noble with bright blonde hair stands elegantly in a tailored green suit, a box below noting that he is clearly wearing expensive clothes. Without warning, the young master thrusts a heavy, bulging pouch forward, completely catching the blacksmith off guard. Pouch is open to reveal a massive, sparkling pile of brilliant gold coins. Inspecting the tools on display, the young master stands in deep thought, resting his hand on his chin. Examining the displayed items labeled as common, rough, and ordinary trowels, he thinks to himself, the quality is lacking. It won't last long. He continues to analyze the tools, wondering, is it because artisan blacksmiths don't bother making tools like this, and noting that they are overpriced anyway, so he might as well make one himself. The young master ponders his options. Even if I reveal I'm the eldest son of House Asteri and commission an artisan, they can't craft high-grade gear in a single day. In that case, turning to the apprentice carrying a wooden crate, the young master asks politely, "Excuse me, is there any way I could try some blacksmithing here?" The surprised apprentice stammers, "Blacksmithing?" while the young master's cheerful offer appears below, "I'll pay you handsomely." The young master offers a bright, closed-eye smile as he holds up the massive sack of gold coins. The gold coins sparkle radiantly inside the heavy pouch, highlighting the young master's immense wealth. The dwarf blacksmith Mudu looks highly skeptical of playing along with a noble's game, while his panicked apprentice gestures wildly and yells, "Brother, please, watch your mouth." In a funny chibi-style panel, the young master cheerfully hands over the massive gold sack, while the apprentice takes a few coins with a sweat drop and Mudu watches in silence. Smiling warmly, the young master responds to the pointing fingers, saying, "I gave you extra on purpose, though." Right? The apprentice turns to look back at the young master with a nervous, sweating expression. Standing side by side, the dwarf blacksmith Mudu crosses his arms and sizes up the young master. A dwarf depiction of a dwarven blacksmith surrounded by intense flames is shown, accompanied by narration boxes explaining, "A dwarf, a race that can reach into fire without getting burned." The narration continues, describing the legendary race as possessing immense strength, yet unmatched in their meticulous precision. Realizing Mudu is a dwarf, the young master thinks, "I heard only descendants remained, but to think I'd run into one here," before asking directly, "What's your name?" As the young master asks the question with an innocent smile, the apprentice in the background breaks into a panicked sweat. Mudu turns and walks away in silence, prompting the terrified apprentice to clutch his head and shout, "Oh my goodness, brother, please watch your mouth." The young master is left chuckling softly, completely unfazed by the dwarf's blunt behavior. Tapping his head in mild confusion, the young master watches Mudu walk off and mutters, he's already gone? Outside the forest forge, the apprentice introduces them. My brother's name is Millionth Mudu. You can just call him Mudu. And my name is Sean. Would you follow me first? Leading him inside, Sean offers, I'll show you around the blacksmith shop, showing rows of neatly arranged shields, axes, and tools on the brick walls. Sean politely tells the young master, take your time looking around, while the young master observes his surroundings with interest. The two stand in the middle of the spacious workshop as Sean continues explaining the forge's layout. Sean points to a rack of sickles and tools, explaining, and once the products are finished, they go on display outside. The young master watches the busy workers hammering hot metal as Sean proudly states, the equipment is excellent and the process is incredibly meticulous. Looking at the forge's fireplace, the young master is puzzled by a major flaw and thinks, why is the quality so low? Suddenly, a faint sound from the fireplace catches his attention, causing him to turn his head in surprise and wonder, what was that? A sad, crying little fire spirit appears inside the burning logs, accompanied by system windows. A lesser fire spirit is looking at you. It seems weaker than normal spirits. Click to check the spirit's complaint. Turning to Sean, the young master points at the fireplace and asks, Sean, is the forge's flame usually this weak? Sean scratches his head with a nervous smile, stammering, now, but... Overhearing the comment, the dwarf blacksmith Mudu stops in his tracks and looks back with a stern, questioning glare. Shocking the dwarf completely, the young master casually answers his unasked question by saying, the fire told me. The young master smiles and says, then I'll show you how to make a tro, but Mudu frantically thrusts his hand forward, shouting, wait, stop! Mudu rushes over and pushes Sean away, instructing, Sean, go take care of your work, then turns to the young master and says, I have something to discuss with this guy in private. Outside, as the wind blows dry leaves past, Mudu stands facing the young master and mutters, you... Close-up of Mudu shows him looking tense, with cold sweat running down his temple. The young master blinks and looks down at the dwarf with a slightly sweating, calm expression. Mudu grunts with furrowed brows, his expression intense and full of hesitation. Confirming Mudu's suspicion, the young master stands tall in front of the workshop and answers, myself. The young master's face turns serious as Mudu prepares to speak about their territory's renown. In a flashback panel, a gorgeous, masterfully crafted sword glows brilliantly as Mudu explains, the blacksmith shop in the Asteri territory is famous enough to get commissions from other territories. Young master blushes and smiles with sheer, unbridled excitement at the mention of their famous commissions. The scene cuts to a close-up of the bright, roaring flames of the forge's fireplace. The warm light of the fire reflects beautifully in the young master's eyes as he smiles confidently. In a long vertical storyboard, Mudu laments, I worked myself to the bone to make this the biggest shop in the territory, but the fire spirit has run out of energy. Without the spirit, artificial firepower alone ruins the quality of the goods. I'm reaching the limit of what I can compensate for with skill. I'm a dwarf, so I can't even understand what the spirit is saying. We're ruined at this rate. Although the young noble looks scrawny and unreliable, Mudu realizes that if he can truly see spirits, it changes everything. Lion casually points out that the fire spirit says it's thirsty, leaving Mudu shocked as he echoes, thirsty? The fire spirit? The two look at each other in a tense, silent realization, the atmosphere shifting between them. An anxious Mudu demands to know what they should do if the spirit is thirsty, while Lion calmly tells him to relax. Suddenly, a brilliant idea strikes Lion as he stands deep in thought in the middle of the forge. Mudu watches him intently, cold sweat rolling down his temple as he anxiously waits for a solution. A confident, knowing smirk plays on Lion's face as he figures out exactly how to proceed. Lion and Mudu firmly shake hands, cementing their agreement to save the forge's fire spirit together. Night falls over the majestic forge under a brilliant, glowing full moon as the work begins. Lion stretches inside the quiet workshop, smiling as he mutters that he never expected to be working overtime in this fantasy world as well. A system prompt alerts Lion that due to prolonged labor, the lesser spirit's essence is drying up and asks him to quench its thirst. Lion reasons that the spirit is suffering from dehydration because this is the largest forge in the territory, thinking it's ridiculous for a spirit to face death from overwork. Lion points his finger at a recipe scroll depicting a glowing, magical rosemary plant. The blueprint details the recipe for aqua rosemary oil, which instantly replenishes lost moisture and adds flavor when cooking meat. Standing over the hot pot, Lion notes that while aqua rosemary is normally just a salty herb, proper processing can transform it. With a glowing flash, the Asteri-made aqua rosemary oil is completed, emitting a refreshing scent that slightly relieves thirst. Lion carefully pours the newly crafted blue-green oil directly into the forge's fireplace. As the fire spirit drinks the oil, a system notification declares that its thirst is partially quenched and the attributes harmonize perfectly. Flames roar high as Lion skillfully tosses ingredients in a cooking pan to refine the mixture. Fresh green aqua rosemary leaves are tossed into the pan to extract their full essence. Lion forcefully wrings a cloth, squeezing out the glowing green liquid drop by drop. The fire spirit lets out a satisfied belch as system notifications confirm its thirst is fully quenched and its essence is fully restored. The grateful fire spirit expresses its thanks, increasing Lion's spirit communion talent EXP by 30%. An ecstatic Mudu bursts into the room with wide-stretched arms, shouting, "You eccentric rascal! You actually did it!" Mudu stares at Lion in absolute awe and disbelief at the young noble's incredible feat. Mudu asks if he is okay as Lion stands pale and exhausted with blood dripping from his nose. Lion weakly smiles and stammers that staying up all night is nothing, right before his vision starts to spin. Lion collapses face first onto the ground, prompting a panicked Mudu to scream, "No, you can't die on me like this, kid." The next morning, a peaceful white smoke rises from the forge's chimney into a beautiful clear blue sky. Two cute young children peer eagerly over the edge of the dining table with sparkling, excited green eyes. Sitting at the table, Lion is greeted by the energetic young boy who proudly declares, "I'm Thorn, made of gold." The children giggle and cheer happily, their faces flushed with joyful excitement. Watching the sweet kids, Lion is reminded of his own sibling, recalling that they were pretty prickly and likely didn't like him very much. A kind blonde woman in an apron looks on with a sweat drop as the children run and play energetically around the breakfast table. The cute blonde boy runs up to Ryan, cutely calling out, "Ryan." The little boy smiles warmly at Lion, melting his heart with his adorable expression. Mother scolds them to stop interrupting the young master's meal, but the kids just laugh and run in circles. Rhea, identified as the Empress of the Millionth Pure, apologizes for her children, but Lion warmly reassures her and praises the delicious soup. Rhea touches her cheek with a sigh, admitting she was incredibly shocked when her husband brought Lion home unconscious that morning. Rhea expresses deep gratitude for Lion solving their crisis, but Lion cheerfully insists that a warm meal and a place to rest make them completely even. The door opens and Mudu walks in, warmly asking Lion if he slept well. Mudu's daughter climbs onto his shoulders and giggles that his face is black again, while Mudu affectionately pats his son's head. Lion watches the sweet family interaction with a bright, genuine smile. Mudu gives a confident grin and announces that he has prepared everything for their blacksmithing work. Lion steps outside and looks around in surprise, wondering what Mudu has prepared. Lion observes neatly arranged blacksmithing tools like sickles and hand hoes laid out in the workspace. Mudu walks briskly ahead, telling Lion that those completed tools aren't what is important right now. Mudu reveals a massive stack of high-quality iron ingots crafted by a descendant of dwarves, explaining he prepared them beforehand so Lion wouldn't collapse from smelting. Lion's eyes sparkle with sheer excitement as he looks at Mudu, who crosses his arms with a proud grin. Excited and ready to learn, Lion clenches his fist and eagerly asks Mudu, "What should I do first?" As the flames roar in the fireplace, Mudu leans in with a serious expression while the young noble watches him in surprise. Mudu explains, "Getting it red isn't enough, but if you heat it too much, it'll melt into liquid iron." Hammering the hot metal, Mudu instructs, "Controlling your strength is key here. Keep the blade part thin and the rest thick so it stays sturdy." Sparks fly as the blade is carefully sharpened against a grinding whetstone. With a determined look, Mudu firmly fits the wooden handle onto the metal piece, demonstrating the final assembly. Mudu raises the finished product high and proudly declares, "The trowel is complete." Shrugging confidently, Mudu reassures Lion, "But you have millionth Wudu helping you, so don't worry." As Mudu finishes speaking, Lion casually picks up a heavy stack of iron ingots, leaving Mudu absolutely dumbfounded. Lion dumps the pile of metal directly onto the fire spirit as a panicked Mudu screams, "Wait, what did you get? Gah!" Unfazed by the dwarf's panic, Lion confidently smiles and says, "I'll give it a try." With a loud metallic clang, Lion takes his first swing, letting out a soft sigh as he begins. Standing over the anvil with sweat running down his face, Lion raises his hammer to strike again. System notifications appear over a heap of ruined metal, warning that the unfinished troll is irreparable and must be melted down again. Wiping the sweat from his brow, Lion encourages himself, thinking, "If I keep repeating this, I'll get it eventually." Through countless attempts, the completion rate slowly ticks up from 30 to 40% as Lion pushes on with the fire spirit's help. Tossing more materials in, Lion brings down his mallet with newfound rhythm, telling himself, "Just like that." Lion strikes the hot iron with all his might, unleashing a brilliant burst of golden sparks and light. Breathing heavily, Lion is shocked as system windows congratulate him on awakening a new talent, blacksmith, reaching apprentice level 1. Sensing something special, Mudu frantically rushes over and shouts, "That last one, let's—" Mudu stares in absolute disbelief, completely overwhelmed by the quality of the raw piece. Lion swallows hard, anxiously waiting for the veteran dwarf's reaction. Moving with frantic excitement, Mudu starts working on the metal to finish the process. They tightly fit the wooden handle onto the metal head, finalizing the tool. Lion raises the finished trowel high with a joyful shout, "It's done!" as the system declares it a novice blacksmith's masterpiece. Mudu laughs heartily and praises him, saying, "Bastard, not bad, you've got talent." Mudu tells Lion he should be much more excited, but Lion just replies with a calm, curious "really?" Bursting with excitement, Lion raises his fist and asks, "All right, next, teach me how to make a sickle." Mudu stares at him with a completely blank, bewildered expression, unable to comprehend the boy's endless stamina. Breaking into a booming laugh, Mudu shouts, "Ha ha ha, you really are a crazy bastard when it comes to grit." Overjoyed by Lion's determination, Mudu declares, "Fine, I'll teach you everything," to which Lion happily cheers, "All right." Under the quiet, starry night sky, a gentle rustling sound echoes through the dark forest. Digging into the soil with his new trowel, Lion unearths a rare finger ginseng, a valuable herb that increases vitality. Holding the freshly harvested root, Lion notes, "What a difference just using a high-grade trowel makes." He looks around the glowing forest floor and realizes that's not all. Carrying a trowel and a sickle has increased the types of herbs I can gather. Smiling confidently, Lion thinks, if I can just raise my trowel proficiency a bit more, a 3-star potion is definitely within reach. He tilts his head slightly as he continues his search in the dim forest, adjusting to the rhythm of gathering. System windows introduce banana sweet potato leaves and stems, detailing their uses for cooking. Lion peers into a shallow pit in the dirt, spotting a large purple potato-like tuber. As he digs, the trowel suddenly erupts into a bright warm flame, causing a startled Lion to gasp, "Huh?" A notification appears explaining that the fire spirit's blessing inside the trowel has activated, perfectly roasting the banana sweet potato on the spot. Holding the warm, steaming potato, Lion remarks with amusement, "I guess this works on anything." The sweet potato is roasted to a beautiful, appetizing golden brown. Lion takes a bite, his eyes widening as he savors the rich taste. He takes another hearty bite, enjoying the warm, comforting snack in the quiet forest. Chewing happily while blowing on the hot food, Lion thinks, sweet potatoes taste best when they're hot enough to burn your mouth. He is delighted by the flavor, describing it as perfectly sweet and nutty, feeling exactly like eating a regular sweet potato with milk. With stars in his eyes, Lion happily declares, "Delicious!" Suddenly, a couple of plump, adorable white birds flutter down from the trees and land right next to him. One of the round, fluffy birds stares up at him intently, prompting Lion to ask, "What's wrong?" The cute little bird hops closer and begins eagerly pecking at the crumbs of sweet potato on the ground. The cute little white bird eagerly pecks at a sweet potato crumb left on the ground. Happy and satisfied, Lion laughs warmly as the two fluffy white birds chirp and flutter around him with joy. Getting ready to head back, Lion stretches his back and stands up in the middle of the quiet forest clearing. Lion smiles brightly, carrying his trowel and bag, and decides, I should dig up a few more sweet potatoes. Under a beautiful blue sky, the grand castle of the Asteri family stands tall as a heavy sigh echoes from within. In the castle courtyard, a worried servant paces near a tree, saying, "It's already been 3 days since young Master Rion left. Why on earth did he go to the blacksmith shop?" The servant turns around in a panic, suddenly noticing that Sylvia is standing silently nearby. Sylvia stands with a dignified and calm posture, observing the young servant with her deep, serious eyes. Gesturing anxiously, the servant whispers, "There are even strange rumors spreading around the territory. They're saying the eldest young master is going to die soon or that he'll be kicked out." Right at that moment, Lion bursts into the courtyard with a bright wave, a little bird on his shoulder, and a bag full of fresh flowers, calling out, "Is everyone waiting out here?" Spotting the young master, the frantic servant immediately runs toward him in absolute relief, shouting, "Young master!" Lion rubs his neck with a joyful grin, assuring them of a deal, while Sylvia watches him with a deeply emotional look. The servant stares at Lion in utter disbelief and confusion, while Lion looks back with a sweat-dropped, surprised expression. The servant freezes with worry as Sylvia steps forward, calling out warmly, "Young master!" Wiping his brow with a cheerful, sheepish smile, Lion greets Sylvia and tries to reassure her. Lion chuckles awkwardly and touches his forehead, trying to find the right words to describe his safe return. Sweating slightly, Sylvia looks down with a complicated and solemn expression, trying to gather her thoughts as she says, "Anyway." Turning around, Lion runs off energetically while waving and calling out, "So just wait a little longer." The young servant falls to his knees, crying tears of profound relief as he watches the energetic young master. As Lion bolts away, the servant chases after him frantically, screaming, "At least take some medicine for your scrapes," while Sylvia looks on. Watching Rion's retreating figure, Sylvia stands silently in the courtyard, her heart filled with complex and heavy emotions. Looking down at her hands, Sylvia's thoughts drift to her own nature as she muses, "As a witch, most existing potions do not work on me. I do not know what Patrick told him." Remembering Rion's childhood, Sylvia recalls how incredibly frail and sickly he was, coughing up blood and breaking her heart, yet now he works tirelessly at the blacksmith forge and gathers herbs all night. A sweet memory of a young Rion blushing and happily offering a beautiful flower crown warms Sylvia's heart, raising a tiny, faint hope within her. A starry celestial path sparkles in the dark sky, mirroring the quiet transition of thoughts. Taking slow, deliberate steps along the stone path, Sylvia wonders to herself, could he really? Looking back one last time at the energetic young master, Sylvia stands firm, ready to make a major decision. Sylvia arrives at the heavy doors of the Lord's private study, where a voice from inside commands, "You're here." Inside the grand office, the family head observes his sister holding the glowing potion bottle and asks, "Judging by your expression, sister, I take the potion worked?" Sylvia blushes warmly with a gentle, touched smile, deeply moved by Rion's genuine sincerity and effort. Sensing the gravity of her reaction, the grandfather sits upright and calls her name in a serious tone, "Sylvia." He points to the towering stacks of documents on his desk, noting they are for Rion's coming-of-age ceremony, which was canceled due to his sudden mana shock. Sylvia looks startled and concerned as her brother sighs, "Then that poses a different kind of problem." Sylvia places the glowing potion on the desk, looking down at it with immense respect and murmurs, "Truly like a hero's potion." A vision of a legendary hero standing amidst roaring flames appears, described as a being who saves the world from evil before it is consumed. But the hero's path is filled with unending battle, despair, and emptiness with every choice made, never truly achieving personal happiness. Once peace is restored, the hero slowly dissolves and begins to fade away, treated like a disposable tool. In a quiet whisper, Sylvia's thoughts conclude, "Yes, they vanish without a trace." Sylvia looks at Rion's sweet, radiant smile in her mind, thinking with deep concern, Rion really is a hero. What should we do? The grandfather clasps his hands with a solemn and heavy expression, admitting he cannot bear to experience the pain of losing another beloved comrade, especially his own grandson. A soft, resolute smile plays on Sylvia's lips as she makes her decision. Standing tall, Sylvia proudly announces, "In that case, it is time to keep our sweet boy well hidden. This old woman, Sylvia, shall now take her retirement," leaving her brother in complete shock. The family head slams his hand on his desk and stands up in absolute disbelief, shouting at his sister's sudden declaration. He frantically gestures and demands an explanation from her, unable to comprehend why she would suddenly choose to retire. The grandfather stares at her with a deeply worried and sweating face, sensing that something grand is about to happen. Dark, powerful, magical energy begins to swirl around Sylvia's feet as she states, "I already know the terms of the contract by heart." Enveloped in a surging dark aura, she recites the ancient pact. The witch Sylvia cannot leave the Asteri territory. The witch Sylvia may live as a human within the Asteri territory. Through the window pane, we see her long hair fluttering as the human disguise fades, and she thinks, "Since our sweet boy has helped me live a bit more like a human in so many ways." Fully transformed into a gorgeous, powerful witch with glowing red eyes, Sylvia smiles confidently and declares, "I will gladly stay by his side to protect him." As the sun sets, a beautiful golden light bathes the Asteri castle, marking the powerful return of the witch who will protect Rion at all costs. Looking over a stack of books under the warm glow of a chandelier, a voice questions, "A new maid has arrived?" Resting his chin on his clasped hands, the purple-eyed youth asks with a serious expression, "And is Brother Rion's exclusive maid?" High above, the grand spires of the Asteri family's magnificent castle stand tall against a warm, glowing sky as a heavy silence settles over the territory. Staring at the stacks of documents on the desk, he reiterates in disbelief, "A new maid was hired?" As a legendary magic circle glows beneath his feet, the young prodigy summons a swirling vortex of blue lightning, hailed as an unrivaled genius, the youngest fourth circle mage, and the successor who most resembles the head of the family. Unleashing a brilliant burst of magical energy from his fingertips, his fierce violet eyes gleam with absolute resolve, proving that his youth is not a weakness but a powerful weapon. Examining a formal retirement document featuring a portrait of Sylvia, the young master ponders, after working here for so long, leaving over a single potion, her retirement made no sense to begin with. But a new maid arrives the moment Sylvia leaves? A sudden wave of suspicion washes over him as he whispers to himself, something is off. The scene shifts back to the quiet of the previous night, where cool moonlight pours through the large window of a luxurious, dimly lit bedchamber. Sitting elegantly in his armchair, the young master asks, "You look bright. Are you truly going through with your retirement?" To which the elderly maid gently replies, "Yes, I wanted to give you my final greetings before I depart." With a peaceful, touched smile, she places her hand over her heart and adds, "Young Master Lion's potion was of great help to me." Shaking his head in disbelief, the young master sweats slightly and mutters under his breath, "I still find it hard to believe." Sylvia encourages him, "If you wish to see if my words are true, why not go pay the eldest young master a visit? You used to follow the eldest young master around all the time when you were little." Clear-cutting the nostalgic memory with an awkward clearing of his throat, he replies, "That was when I was a child." Chuckling warmly under a bright aura, she reassures him, "Haha, young master, it may be hard to believe, but this old woman's words are entirely true. If you ever find yourself curious." The young master looks away, his sharp violet eyes narrowed as his mind races with deep contemplation. Looking down at the new maid's profile on his desk, he leans his chin on his hand and thinks, "Is all of this really thanks to my foolish brother? It makes no sense, none at all," but whipping his dark coat over his shoulders with a dramatic flutter, he decides, "I have to see for myself." Rushing out of the brightly illuminated office doors with his cloak billowing behind him, he asks, "Did they say he's been spending time in Mimir Forest lately?" A transition panel shows a quiet, dark canopy of leaves rustling softly, with a caption reading, "Asteri Territory, Mimir Forest." Under a quiet, starry night sky, a dense forest shrouded in thick, mysterious fog stands before the towering dark mountains. Walking carefully through the overgrown grass of the dark woods, he complains, "This forest is as gloomy as ever, and there isn't even a proper path." Leaning heavily against a tree branch with a deep sigh, he wonders, what could he possibly find so appealing about a place like this? If he needs herbs for alchemy, he could just ask John. Suddenly, loud rustling and digging noises echo from the shadows ahead, causing him to turn his head in startled surprise. Carefully reaching his hand out, he parts the thick, rustling bushes to peer through and see what is making the noise. He freezes in absolute shock as he spots a dark silhouette kneeling on the grass a short distance away. Staring at the silhouette holding a warm, glowing tuber, he thinks in sheer bewilderment, "Brother? What in the world is he doing?" With saliva dripping from his mouth, Lion opens his jaws incredibly wide, ready to take a massive bite of the steaming sweet potato. Panicking at the sight, the young master aims his magic wand as a burst of light erupts, screaming at the top of his lungs, "You can't eat that!" Unleashing a powerful magical blast that sweeps through the air, the young master leaps forward and yells, "Don't eat something so filthy!" as a startled Lion recoils in shock. With a heavy thump, Lion falls to his knees on the grass, completely devastated by the sudden destruction of his meal. Holding his chest as comical tears stream down his face, Lion wails in pure despair, "No!" next to his crushed roasted banana sweet potato, which is now declared completely inedible. Clenching his fist with a comically furious vein popping on his forehead, Lion demands, "This? What is the meaning of?" While his younger brother lands with a confused, "Huh?" Flinching with a nervous sweat, the younger brother panics internally, thinking, "Oh no, I was planning to just watch from the shadows and leave." Squinting with suspicion as he looks at his younger brother, Lion asks, "Wait, did you come to see me? Could it be?" Comically gasping and wrapping his arms around himself in a defensive pose, Lion panics, thinking it's a rivalry check, while a system note dryly clarifies, he's not. Gesturing with his hands, the younger brother tries to justify his actions, lecturing, "But you shouldn't eat something covered in dirt. It's unhygienic." The younger brother stands frozen in silence, looking slightly bewildered by Lion's bizarre reaction. Shaking his head pityingly, Lion sighs, "You are seriously missing out on life," leaving the younger brother to sweat drop and grumble, "I wouldn't go that far." Turning back to the dark woods, Lion happily announces, "I'll go dig up a few more nearby," while his brother reaches out with a surprised, "Ah." Lion looks back over his shoulder with an incredibly bright, heartwarming smile that contrasts sharply with the dark forest around them. Caught off guard by his brother's genuine warmth, the younger brother blushes slightly and nods, murmuring, "Yes, that is not difficult." Sitting quietly on a fallen log in front of a warm, crackling campfire, the younger brother warms his hands as the flames dance before him. Lion runs back with a giant smile, cradling an armful of freshly dug sweet potatoes, while his younger brother watches him in absolute amazement. With a bright smile, Lion begins tossing the sweet potatoes directly into the raging campfire, leaving his younger brother staring in utter disbelief. Looking at the intense flames, the younger brother asks in concern, "Won't they burn if you just leave them like that?" But Lion confidently reassures him, "It's fine, the skin is thick, so the inside cooks perfectly." A peaceful silence settles over the dark forest as the two brothers sit side by side on the log, listening to the gentle crackle of the campfire. Looking down at the glowing embers, the younger brother's expression softens as he is swept away by a rare moment of peace and nostalgia. Smiling warmly in the firelight, Lion looks over at his younger brother with deep affection, enjoying their simple bonding time. Looking back at his brother with a subtle, gentle smile, the younger brother thinks to himself, "I think I understand." Poking a perfectly roasted, split-open sweet potato with a small wooden stick, Lion happily declares, "They look ready, let's eat." Looking closely at the steaming, perfectly roasted sweet potato in his hands, the young master prepares to take a bite. He takes a massive bite, chewing happily with flushed cheeks as steam rises from the delicious treat. Under a cold, starry night sky, the forest is dark and windy, prompting the narrative to ask what kind of food is most craved in such chilly weather. As warm street food stalls appear in his mind, the narrative describes the roasted sweet potato as the perfect mix of natural sweetness and warmth. Lion watches in absolute amazement as his younger brother eagerly packs away the roasted sweet potatoes one after another. Watching him eat, Lion fondly recalls how students his age always have massive appetites, remembering how he constantly ate breakfast, snacks, and instant ramen in his youth. Staring down at the massive pile of empty sweet potato skins by his feet, the younger brother panics and wonders when he managed to eat so many. Blushing with embarrassment, the younger brother shyly admits his huge appetite, and Lion warmly tells him to eat as much as he wants. Looking down thoughtfully, the younger brother realizes that keeping a close watch over someone can indeed be exhausting. As they sit around the cozy campfire, Lion gently reassures him, saying, "And I've never once blamed you, brother." Caught off guard by his elder brother's words, the younger master looks up with soft violet eyes, deeply touched. Lion laughs heartily and waves his hands, promising to always do his absolute best for his beloved younger brother. Looking at his younger brother's stunned expression, Lion remarks with a gentle sweat drop that he is still just a kid. Standing up in the firelight, Lion stretches and kindly advises him that if he ever gets tired of studying, it is perfectly fine to just do whatever he wants sometimes. Sitting back down next to his younger brother, Lion warmly wraps an arm around his shoulder in a rare moment of brotherly bonding. Feeling the genuine warmth of his brother's embrace, a soft blush colors the young master's cheeks as a gentle smile plays on his lips. Looking up at the brilliant moon shining in the starry night sky, the young master reflects on Grandma Sylvia's wise words. In the quiet depth of Mirror Forest, the two brothers sit side by side on a log, basking in the warm glow of the crackling campfire. A warm feeling fills his heart as he thinks to himself, "I'm glad I came to see you, brother." The cool moonlight fades as a beautiful morning sun begins to filter through the lush green leaves of the forest. Back in his luxurious bedroom the next morning, Lion sits comfortably on his bed as a holographic system notification pops up before him. Current funds, 71,500 shillings. The shilling shop unlocks at 100,000 shillings. Only preview is currently available. Realizing he cannot do anything about the funds yet, Lion yawns lazily while a comical memory of the furious family head shouting at him pops up. Lion stretches on his bed, saying, "I don't have to worry about getting kicked out for now, so I should just relax and enjoy myself." Lion hears a knock on his large double doors and casually calls out, "Come in." A young woman with dark hair and striking red eyes enters, greeting him with a polite hello. Lion turns around with a startled, "Ha!" The beautiful maid introduces herself. "My name is Elvia. I will be serving you starting today, young master." Lion stares at her, feeling a strange, powerful sense of familiarity as Sylvia's silhouette appears behind her. A chibi transition screen reveals Lion's thoughts. Ah, she must have some kind of secret story. No wonder Sylvia suddenly announced her retirement. This was why. He muses that in a fantasy world, it makes perfect sense for other races like elves to exist. Elvia bows respectfully, and Lion smiles brightly as he greets his new exclusive maid. Close-up of Elvia's serene face, her crimson eyes gleaming with quiet intensity and absolute composure. Bowing her head slightly, Elvia calmly says, "I apologize, young master. I do not quite understand what you mean." Waving her concern off, a cheerful lion slings his bag over his shoulder and smiles warmly, catching Elvia completely off guard with his bright attitude. Opening his bedroom door, Lion happily bids his new maid farewell, announcing, "I'm supposed to go out with Rixel today." The scene shifts to the bustling town square on a beautiful, clear day, with cheerful townspeople chatting and walking around. A close-up of Rixel's intense violet eyes as a deep worry consumes his thoughts. A chibi graphic details Rixel's growing panic. How can his stamina still be this bad when he climbed the mountain every single day? He keeps track of Lion collapsing from exhaustion 870,943 times and falling asleep while eating 32,963 times. Rixel continues to worry, wondering if this is an after effect of the mana shock, and decides he needs to have a priest examine his brother safely. Rixel notes that mages in the temple do not get along, but seeing Lion completely exhausted and out of breath, he gently supports him and promises to walk slower. Deeply concerned, Rixel thinks at this rate, brother will collapse before the coming-of-age ceremony is held again. Determined to save his brother, Rixel concludes, so we must avoid getting caught by either the house or the temple and make sure brother can meet a priest safely. Narrowing his violet eyes in deep thought, Rixel ponders, it might take some time, but the most reliable way to meet a priest? A sparkling thought bubble pops up, revealing Rixel's grand plan is through volunteer work. Remembering the temple's doctrines, Rixel explains that since they encourage volunteer work, they can naturally get close to the priests while helping those in need. Returning to the lively town street, various market stalls and cozy medieval buildings line the path. Completely drained of energy, Lion pants heavily and leans forward, his stamina completely depleted just from walking. Rixel looks back at him with a cheerful smile, looking perfectly fine and completely unaffected by the walk. The two brothers arrive in front of a grand, whimsical building with a tall spire and a sign reading, "The Flawless Magic Shop." Stepping inside the beautifully lit shop, Lion gazes around in wonder and says, "Whoa, I've wandered all over the territory, but I had no idea a place like this existed." Rixel answers, "Only those in the know come here." Rixel sweat drops and awkwardly answers, "Probably," as chibi versions of the two brothers stand in a comical, shocked pose. Looking at the whimsical trinkets on display, Lion wonders why they look like children's toys, highlighting items like single-use ear-shaped earrings that double hearing and a triple-writing fountain pen for perfect handwriting. Lion looks on with an amused smile and thinks to himself, I see how it is, while Rixel stands in the background with a nervous, sweating expression. In the grand magic shop, the enthusiastic shopkeeper welcomes the two brothers with open arms, gesturing towards his shelves as he proudly exclaims, "Of course they do." Smiling cheerfully, the bald shopkeeper happily pours a magical potion over his head to wash it, causing fluffy white soap bubbles to puff up around his ears. Pointing upward as magical bubble hands mimic his gestures, the energetic shopkeeper reassures them, disguise tools. Of course we have those. With a dramatic sweep of his hands, the shopkeeper displays a shelf filled with glittering magical accessories, proudly declaring, "Everything from here to there is a disguise tool." Displayed on the counter are basic disguise items like the skinny bracelet, which temporarily alters one's impression for 12 hours, and height-increasing insoles that make the wearer look taller. The shopkeeper explains, "The budget options that only slightly alter your impression are over here." Pulling back a heavy curtain with a grand flourish, the shopkeeper prepares to show them the shop's premium collection of magical disguise tools. On display is the perfect disguise hairpin, an item so powerful that even one's own parents wouldn't recognize them. It allows the wearer to customize their hair color, eye color, and even hidden tattoos, deactivating automatically after 10 hours. A golden bell rings merrily above the door as the shopkeeper calls out a warm farewell, bidding them, "Please come again." Standing outside on the sunny town street, Rixel looks over at Lion and asks, "How was it?" as Lion carries a large brown paper bag. Lion peeks inside the paper bag to inspect their purchases, finding a neatly wrapped red gift box, a pair of scissors, and a leather-bound folder. Feeling a sudden rustle inside the bag, Lion looks down in surprise and murmurs, Lion pulls out a notebook labeled Artisan's Repair Kit, which can fix absolutely any item of artisan rank or lower. He thinks to himself in delight, "Oh, they gave us something way more valuable than a hairpin as a freebie. Maybe because it sold?" Rixel looks back in surprise as Lion nods with a bright, knowing expression while holding the repair kit. Gently sliding the magical perfect disguise barrette into Lion's hands, Rixel prepares to activate its magic. A brilliant blue magical aura surges around them, wrapping Lion in a swirling, glowing light as the disguise magic takes effect. When the light fades, both brothers have completely transformed, sporting soft brown hair and bright blue eyes. An amazed lion runs his fingers through his hair and comments, "Oh, this is amazing. It's a perfect disguise." Nodding in agreement, Rixel smiles warmly and points down the road, saying, "Yeah, let's go." Arriving near a rushing river with a large wooden water wheel, a confused lion asks, "Rixel, you said we were going to do volunteer work. Why are we at a mill?" Sweat dropping slightly at his brother's question, Rixel awkwardly replies, "We're going to do volunteer work, right?" Walking along the scenic riverbank, Rixel explains, "I heard the bread made from freshly milled flour is quite special." Swallowing hard with a nervous smile, Rixel secretly thinks to himself, "Of course, there's another reason I came to this mill," just as a booming voice calls out, "Welcome!" A stout, cheerful miller wearing a red apron and a brown flat cap greets them with a wide, laughing smile, exclaiming, "I've been expecting you." Rixel recalls that the miller is one of the few devout believers in the Asteri territory, famous for his generous donations and wide connections. Rixel's plan unfolds in his mind as he realizes that if he builds a good relationship with this influential miller, he can naturally approach the temple. Walking up to the miller, Rixel politely asks, "Is the order ready?" Gesturing to the massive sacks stacked behind him under the wooden pavilion, the friendly miller confirms the order is prepared. Looking at the giant mound of flour, a chibi version of Lion's sweat drops in confusion, wondering why they would possibly need so much flour. Smiling warmly, the miller praises their generosity and asks, "That is a truly wonderful decision. Have you decided where to donate here?" Clutching his chin anxiously, the miller desperately hopes to himself, "Please say the temple, please say the temple." Pumping his fist in excitement, Rixel internally cheers yes, while maintaining a calm, serious expression on the outside. On a leafy branch nearby, two adorable, fluffy little birds sit quietly side by side, enjoying the beautiful sunny morning. The miller looks down thoughtfully, recalling how things used to be in the past. Scratching his cheek awkwardly, the miller comments, "And with the prestigious magic house's position?" The miller deduces that, judging by the massive size of their flour order and their noble appearance, the two young men must come from a highly respectable family. Rixel looks down thoughtfully, hoping that this connection will help improve the difficult situation at the orphanage. Both the miller and Rixel gasp in shock, turning their wide eyes toward Lion in utter surprise. Smiling brightly with absolute enthusiasm, Lion pumps his fist and suggests, "So how about we bake some bread for the children to eat right away?" Brimming with positive energy, Lion stands tall and smiles warmly, eager to help bake fresh bread for the kids. Sacks of fresh white flour sit neatly stacked on the wooden floor inside the cozy, warm mill. Delighted by the idea, the jolly miller claps his hands together and boasts, "My shop is famous for making the most delicious bread around." Looking down with a soft, slightly guilty expression, Rixel realizes he was so focused on his brother that he failed to consider the actual situation at the orphanage. Glancing warmly at his brother, Rixel's expression softens as he thinks, "As expected, brother is so thoughtful." A chibi version of the miller sparkles with joy, cheering, "A wonderful idea, excellent." Clenching his fist with a bright, confident smile, Lion eagerly rolls up his sleeves to prepare for some serious baking. The beautiful wooden watermill stands tall under a clear blue sky, its water wheel turning lazily as green leaves flutter in the gentle breeze. A lovely transition title card appears with a serene leafy background, featuring the Korean title, "I don't know about the successor, so I'll just heal." Laid out on the kitchen counter are high-quality baking ingredients, including a bag of whole wheat flour and a bottle of high-quality olive oil. Standing proudly behind the ingredients, Lion smiles brightly and plans his recipe. Let's see, we have plenty of flour, and this olive oil is 2-star. That guarantees amazing flavor. Prepared to start baking, the miller, Rixel, and Lion gather in the kitchen, ready to make a delicious batch of fresh bread for the children. The miller raises his fist confidently as he begins explaining the process of making bread. A cooking instruction guide displays the first step, showing a container of yeast and explaining to mix salt, yeast, and milk to make the dough. The guide continues, illustrating fresh milk being poured from a steel container into the dry ingredients. After mixing the ingredients thoroughly, the dough is left in a bowl to ferment and rise. In the next step, gloved hands gently press the risen dough to release any trapped air bubbles. The perfectly shaped loaf of raw dough rests on the wooden table, ready to be baked. Standing confidently in front of his clean loaves of dough, a disguised Rixel says, "That's easy." The miller turns to Rixel and asks, "Are you not finished yet, young master?" While Rixel wonders if Lion is done. In a dramatic pose, a sweat-dropping Lion raises his hands and dramatically says, "Yes, I think I need a bit more time. I can feel it." Inside the hot stone oven, the dough loaves slowly bake, turning a warm brown. With a click, the excited miller opens the oven door to inspect the bread, saying, "Let's see how they turned out." A thick cloud of smoke rises as a completely charred, pitch-black loaf of bread crumbles into ash with a dry crunch. Sweat dropping, the miller exclaims, "Oh dear, if you put in too much dough out of greed, it burns like this." A shadowy, stunned lion stands silently next to him. The miller happily turns to the next oven and notes, "Oh, it looks like the eldest young master's bread is finished baking as well. Let's see." As the miller opens the second oven, a brilliant, divine golden light bursts out, completely blinding everyone in the kitchen. A perfect, beautifully golden loaf of whole wheat bread sparkles on the tray. An item description box appears detailing the masterpiece. Asteri-made whole wheat bread. A beautifully baked whole wheat bread. Crispy and chewy on the outside, moist and soft on the inside. It would go perfectly with jam or in a sandwich. Usage, food. You must reach apprentice level 3 to acquire the recipe. Looking at the glistening tray of perfect loaves, the astounded miller gasps, "How could you bake bread of this quality?" Holding the perfect loaf of bread, the bewildered miller asks, "How on earth did you do it?" While Rixel sweat drops in surprise at his brother's hidden talent. Two beautiful, steaming loaves of whole wheat bread sit on the counter, radiating a delicious aroma. Thinking of the children, Lion explains, "Since they eat this every day, I wanted to make sure they ate plenty of delicious bread today." Lion continues, "So I made a few scores on top, and it turned out better than expected," while the miller looks on, deeply moved by his genuine kindness. The miller realizes how wrong he was about them, thinking that they are baking bread for the children with all their hearts, while Rixel tells Lion, "Brother, you truly have a talent for this." Adjusting his cap with a nervous smile, the miller says, "You must have your own work to do, yet we've kept you here too long." Running out of the mill in a hurry, the miller calls out, "I will return as quickly as possible." Watching him sprint down the path, a chibi lion's sweat drops and asks, "Did we scare him? Why did he suddenly run away?" To which Rixel replies, "It will be fine, brother." Back inside the kitchen, Rixel pulls on his gloves and says, "I will also devote myself so I do not fall behind you, brother." Lion chuckles and responds, "Then I can't afford to lose either." Working together, the two brothers carefully arrange their freshly shaped dough on baking sheets. An achievement window pops up above them, Aspiring Baker 1. Progress toward achievement, 47/100. Their progress rises further, showing another achievement window. Aspiring Baker 1, progress toward achievement, 62 out of 100. Running back into the mill, the miller pantingly calls out, "I'm back, young masters!" as a surprised lion turns and says, "You're back? Oh, but..." Lion's jaw drops in shock as he sees a large, friendly crowd of villagers standing right behind the miller outside the door. A village woman with a warm smile steps forward, carrying a sack of fresh food to donate. Spotting a familiar face among the villagers, Lion's eyes widen in absolute surprise. Standing in the kitchen, Lion raises a finger to his lips, giving his friend a playful shh sign to keep their identities a secret. A helpful village woman sets a heavy brown suitcase down on the ground with a soft thud. The suitcase is opened, revealing a generous pile of donated food items, including fresh milk bottles, blocks of cheese, and sacks of grains. Nearby, a muscular woman in a pink top and blue skirt effortlessly lifts an incredibly massive stack of potato sacks over her shoulder, dropping them with a loud crash. Stunned by her incredible strength, the onlookers gasp, "Whoa, look at those forearms! That's a blessing for any farmer." Another whispers, "They said she used to wrestle bears." Looking at the massive pile of donations, a pleased lion smiles brightly and says, "This turned out great, brother." The miller happily helps hand out food to the villagers. Watching them, Lion thinks, "I only thought about getting close to Nicholas to meet the priest. I feel ashamed." Looking over at his brother with a soft, affectionate smile, Rixel's heart warms as he sees Lion's genuine kindness. Proud of his brother's selfless heart, Rixel watches Lion with a happy, bright smile. A beautiful transition scene shows a grand, elegant orphanage building under a bright blue sky, with a caption reading, "A few hours later, the orphanage under..." Inside the orphanage courtyard, a nun clutches her hands together in tears of gratitude, weeping, "Oh, thank you so much. I don't know how we can ever repay the grace shown by such noble young masters." Lion politely replies, "Please, don't mention it. We're just glad we could help." Two adorable orphan children peek curiously into a large woven picnic basket, exclaiming, "It smells so good," while the nun's sweat drops and says, "Oh, children, say hello first." A young girl holds up a beautiful pink dress in delight, cheering, "Look at this! There's so much stuff! Wow, there are clothes too! They're so pretty!" as other children gather around to see. The nun turns to the brothers with a warm smile and asks, "Would you mind handing out the bread to the children yourself? I'll move the donated goods in the meantime." Lion replies with a bright smile, "Sure, we'd be happy to." Kneeling down in the sunny courtyard, Lion gently hands the delicious golden loaves to the excited children, who cheer, "Wow, it looks delicious, thank you." Suddenly sensing something, Lion's eyes widen in surprise as he looks up, uttering, "Huh?" A young boy with dark hair watches the children playing in the courtyard from behind a tree while Lion and a girl look back toward him. With a confused expression, Lion wonders what's going on as the dark-haired boy suddenly turns around and runs away in a hurry. The nun looks apologetically at Lion and begins to explain the situation. The nun says, "I apologize if he seemed rude. The children are still young, so they don't always know how to accept such kindness," while Lion listens in silent understanding. The boy runs away as fast as his legs can carry him, fleeing the cheerful atmosphere of the orphanage courtyard. Watching the boy's retreating figure, the nun asks, "Oh, where are you going, young master?" as Lion picks up a basket of fresh bread and says, "Ah." Smiling warmly, Lion turns back and explains Peter hasn't gotten any bread yet, knowing that the young boy has secluded himself under a tree. The nun's voice narrates, "Ever since he's been refusing all donated food and supplies like that," as Lion approaches Peter with the basket of bread. Observing the boy huddled tightly against the tree trunk, Lion notes to himself that Peter looks terribly thin. Sitting down on the grass next to the boy, Lion gently says, "The other kids already ate, only your piece is left." Lion proudly holds up a beautiful, freshly baked golden loaf of bread, presenting it to Peter with a big, friendly smile. Despite his stubborn posture, Peter's stomach lets out a very loud, betrayal-filled rumble. Lion smiles knowingly and remarks, "So you are hungry," causing Peter to quickly turn away in embarrassed annoyance. Lion watches Peter thoughtfully, thinking to himself that if the boy is refusing to eat even while starving, he must be genuinely hurting and needs some time. The two sit in a quiet, peaceful silence under the shade of the large tree while the other children play far in the distance. The warm colors of sunset begin to fill the sky as the afternoon slowly turns into evening. As the day winds down, one of the volunteers calls out, "I'm heading inside first," while another bows politely in farewell. Peter drifts off to sleep, curled up on the soft green grass under the peaceful shade of the tree. Upon waking up, Peter narrows his eyes grumpily, muttering, "Hypocrites," under his breath. As Peter grumbles, "Why do they keep bothering us with their volunteer work?" Lion suddenly chimes in from right next to him. "Are you awake?" Startled, Peter bolts upright and shouts, "Why are you still here? Why didn't you leave?" To which Lion sheepishly replies that Peter was sleeping so soundly he didn't want to wake him. Peter is surprised to see a warm loaf of bread placed in his lap as Lion smiles warmly and asks, "Want some?" Stubbornly turning his head away, Peter snaps, "I don't want it." Unfazed by the boy's attitude, Lion smiles gently and holds the loaf of bread in both hands. With a satisfying tearing sound, Lion splits the warm, golden bread right down the middle. Lion takes a huge, dramatic bite out of one of the halves, leaving a sweat-dropping Peter staring at him in utter disbelief. Munching happily, Lion boasts, "It's delicious," with an extremely satisfied expression on his face. Dumbfounded by Lion's unexpected behavior, Peter points and shouts, "Wait, hey!" Lion suddenly starts coughing and choking dramatically, clutching his neck in apparent agony. Peter gasps in absolute shock, his eyes widening with genuine worry and panic at the sight. Prompted by concern, Peter hurriedly stuffs the other half of the bread into his mouth to show it's fine, chewing quickly while Lion secretly smiles, pleased that his trick worked. Peter suddenly stops chewing, his eyes sparkling in astonishment as the delicious flavor of the bread hits him. Lion smiles warmly at Peter, who is still chewing, and softly asks if he likes the taste. Peter looks down at the half-eaten loaf of bread in his hands, completely mesmerized by how incredibly delicious it is. He stares at the bread in confusion, wondering why simple donated food could possibly taste this good. Peter's expression darkens as a cynical thought crosses his mind. Things like this are usually just for show. Peter remembers his painful past, where a priest introduced him to adoptive parents who ultimately abandoned him, thinking, "That's what people do. The people who were kind to me like this always abandoned me back here, saying I didn't look at them like real parents. They just threw me away again." Tears begin to well up in Peter's golden eyes as the painful memories of rejection wash over him. Choking back his tears, Peter takes another bite of the bread, weeping silently as he thinks, "All adults are liars." Lion quietly watches the weeping boy with a gentle, deeply empathetic gaze, letting him process his emotions. Lion smiles warmly and squats down closer to Peter, his eyes filled with gentle comfort and understanding. Feeling the warm gaze, Peter looks up with a tearful, startled expression. Peter aggressively wipes his tears and yells at Lion, who simply laughs heartily and sits beside him in a chibi style. Peter looks away with a slight blush on his cheeks, muttering, "Yes." Lion smiles with absolute warmth and says, "So." Under the soft golden light of the setting sun, Peter bows his head and whispers a sincere "thank you" to Lion. Lion smiles back with a bright, affectionate expression, deeply touched by the young boy's sincerity. Reaching his hand out, Lion extends his pinky finger toward Peter. Peter looks at Lion's hand in wide-eyed surprise, his cheeks flushing as he realizes what it means. Lion leans forward with a soft, encouraging smile, inviting Peter to make a pinky promise. Peter stares in silent, wide-eyed surprise, his cheeks flushing slightly as he looks at the hand extended toward him. Peter extends his own small finger, gently locking it with Lion's in a solemn pinky promise under the warm, golden light. Ruffling Peter's hair affectionately, Lion smiles and says, "Seeing how much you ate today, I'll have to bake a ton." Nearby, the emotional nun clutches her hands together in gratitude. Looking on at the heartwarming scene, the nun is deeply moved to tears, a single drop rolling down her sweating cheek. Laughing warmly as he holds a piece of bread, Peter smiles brightly while Lion's hand remains gently on his head. The nun's voice softly narrates, "It's been so long since I last saw that child smile." Turning to walk away with a happy grin, Lion asks, "Now, shall we go over to the other children?" Peter eagerly nods and responds, "Yeah, let's." Walking hand in hand toward the bright sunset, Lion and Peter share a heartwarming moment of pure joy as the narration concludes, "Truly deserves God's blessing." Under the stunning colors of the sunset, the villagers call out, "Thank you," from the grand orphanage building, to which the brothers reply, "Of course, everyone. See you again." Back inside the building, the nun approaches the two young masters with a deeply grateful and anxious expression, holding her hand to her chest. Smiling warmly at the brothers, the nun suggests, "So, how about you receive a prayer of blessing from the priest before you go?" Catching them completely by surprise. Rixel clutches his chest, a subtle, satisfied smile playing on his lips as he thinks to himself, It worked." The nun gestures toward the elegant double doors, guiding them forward as she says, "Then would you please follow me this way?" Outside, a horse gallops furiously down the dirt path, its hooves kicking up a thick cloud of dust as it races against time. Looking out the window of the carriage with a stern, focused gaze, a handsome man with glasses prepares for his arrival. The text reads, "The priest will arrive shortly." Sitting alone on a large sofa in an elegant reception room, Rixel patiently waits next to a table set with fresh tea and cookies. A worried thought bubble appears, asking, "Brother, could you perhaps postpone meeting the priest until next time?" Rixel sits on the sofa with Lion, expressing his concern, "Since he is from the temple, I worry he might bring you harm," only for a cheerful Lion to immediately reply, "Sure." Taken aback by his brother's casual response, Rixel bolts upright with a sweat drop, exclaiming in surprise, "What?" Waving energetically as he runs out the door, Lion cheers, "So don't worry about me and go take care of whatever you need to do. Oh, it's time for my baking class. I'm off." Sighing softly, Rixel calms himself and thinks, "Well, this works out. What brother needs is a prayer infused with divine power. It would be trouble if the priest holds any hostility toward our house." Rixel watches the door slowly creak open, thinking, "So I must meet him first to make sure." A handsome priest with glasses stands before a stained glass window, his hands clasped in prayer as he introduces himself. "May God's grace be with the anonymous benefactor. I am Licht, a servant of God." Rixel notes, "Licht, a high priest of the temple?" Sitting across from Rixel, Priest Licht smiles warmly and speaks, "That you wish to remain an anonymous donor." Observing the guest carefully, Rixel thinks, "He's younger than I expected. I heard young priests usually stay inside the temple, but if he's traveling outside to offer prayers?" A steaming, freshly poured cup of tea sits on the table as Licht's polite voice echoes, "I thank you on behalf of all the priests." Licht gracefully raises the teacup to his lips, taking a slow, calm sip as he observes his host. Rixel sits quietly in deep thought, his expression turning solemn as he prepares to make a delicate request. Clasping his hands tightly together with a soft squeeze, Rixel nervously readies himself to speak the truth. Looking at the priest with a tense expression, Rixel thinks to himself, "I intentionally planned this so I could have you examine my brother." Lich chuckles softly and smiles, reassuring him, "Please, calm yourself, benefactor." Sitting back in his chair, Licht speaks honestly. "I also came here in secret, avoiding the eyes of the temple." Licht raises his hand to adjust his glasses, leaving Rixel feeling uneasy as he thinks, "Is he refusing me? I can't read his expression at all." Startled, Rixel looks up as Licht suddenly suggests 3 days from now. Gesturing calmly, Licht continues, at this exact time in 3 days, setting up their next meeting. Suddenly, a frantic cry of "brother" echoes through the sky, accompanied by a dramatic, stylized text bubble screaming, "Yikes!" The scene transitions to a majestic, towering cathedral standing proudly under the bright afternoon sky. Standing in a laboratory, Lion turns around and scolds his brother, who is lounging lazily on the table, shouting, "Why are you still awake at this hour of the night? With your health, what are you going to do if you keep skipping sleep?" Scratching his ear sheepishly with a sweat drop, Rixel offers a playful, guilty smile to his angry brother. Sitting cross-legged on the desk, Rixel gestures defensively and asks, "My body?" as Lion stands with his hands on his hips. A magical aura swirls around Rixel as he inspects a glass bottle, thinking, "But right now, I'm just a bit weak. It's hard to say I'm actually sick. Ever since I got mana back then, the mana shock issues have disappeared, and I never really had a chronic illness to begin with." A stylized text bubble highlights Rixel's confident thoughts. "Honestly, I've even built up some stamina lately from running around so much." A cute chibi illustration shows a happy Rixel wearing a straw hat and overalls, running around with a shovel and a small plant while a bird flies alongside him. Rixel beams with sparkling eyes and a huge, joyful smile, utterly delighted as he continues to talk. Turning back to his brother with a sudden realization, Rixel asks in confusion, "At dawn? When?" as Lion stares back with a blank expression. Looking at a glowing glass bottle of holy water, Rixel views the item description. High-grade holy water can be obtained through a high priest upon unlocking hidden conditions. He thinks, "Oh, high-grade holy water? He looks so young, yet he can already make something like this? Impressive." Lion turns around in absolute surprise as he notices Rixel and Priest Licht standing behind him in the doorway. Lion bows politely, greeting, "It is a pleasure to meet you, priest." Smiling warmly, Licht replies, "May God's grace be with you. The pleasure is mine to meet such benefactors. First, why don't we sit down and have a chat?" As they sit together, Rixel speaks up, "Come to think of it, Sir Priest, there is something I'm curious about." To which Licht pleasantly replies, "Please, ask away." Rixel looks over with a curious and slightly tense expression as he prepares to ask his question. Suddenly, both Rixel and Lion widen their eyes in absolute shock, their faces turning completely pale at the unexpected response. Priest Licht explains that priests with exceptional divine power can receive divine revelations in their dreams, which are also known as prophetic dreams. Rixel listens with a tense and worried expression, sweat dripping down his face. In Priest Licht's dream, children were sleeping peacefully in a field with Rixel and Lion standing right beside them, looking slightly different but undeniably themselves. Licht explains that he needed to confirm something after having that prophetic dream. Licht reveals that he wanted to see for himself what kind of people had appeared in his dream. Licht notes to himself that the younger brother, Rixel, is actually a mage. Licht observes that Rixel speaks quite elegantly and looks very young. Licht suspects that Rixel, who is disguised, belongs to the prominent Asteri family and wonders if his true goal is to treat his older brother or steal information from the temple. Rixel stands up politely to prepare for the priest's blessing as Lion sits quietly. Licht announces that he will begin the blessing and Lion politely thanks him. Licht raises his hand and channels a powerful green divine light over Lion to bestow the blessing. Licht suddenly pauses in shock, sweat dripping down his face as he senses something strange. Licht is baffled, knowing his divine power isn't weak by any means, yet something feels off. Wondering if he made a mistake, Licht intensifies the flow of his divine power onto Lion. The divine energy simply scatters and dissipates harmlessly into the air upon touching Lion. Licht looks completely dumbfounded and pale, utterly shocked by what is happening. Meanwhile, Lion remains perfectly fine, smiling brightly and warmly under the divine light. Lion gently pats his shoulder, testing his muscles. Lion cheerfully tells Priest Licht that he thinks he has received more than enough blessing. Licht stares at Lion in complete and utter disbelief. Licht reasons that normally a blessing would only fail if a mage of higher standing than the priest was actively blocking the treatment, or the target of the blessing is already in peak physical condition and perfect health. The second reason is that the person is already in perfect health and simply doesn't need a blessing. However, Lion's condition was supposedly a terminal one where he was born with a short lifespan. Suddenly, Licht steps forward with a determined look, surprising Lion. In a flash, Licht grabs Lion's hands firmly. With a fiery passion in his eyes, Licht dramatically asks Lion if he understands, leaving a bewildered Lion to meekly agree. Lion thanks the priest for his kindness as the door creaks open. Lex stands in silence, watching Lion walk down the hallway. Lion walks away, scratching his head and wondering why he feels so uneasy. The scene shifts to the magnificent Asteri castle under a clear blue sky. The majestic towers of Asteri Castle stand tall under the bright morning sun. Rixel expresses his relief that Lion looks so much better, noting that their trip at dawn was truly meaningful. Lion thinks to himself that while he didn't feel the core effect of the divine power because he's already in perfect shape, the blessing completely relieved his stiff shoulders and muscle aches from baking all night. Lion asks Rixel if he is tired, pointing out the deep, dark circles under his eyes. Rixel replies that he has mana training scheduled for this morning. Rixel waves goodbye and walks away to attend his training. Lion turns around only to find a maid standing behind him, enveloped in an ominous dark aura. The maid suggests that if Lion feels so strongly about it, he should bring it up directly with the family head. Lion's eyes widen as a brilliant idea suddenly strikes him. Lion excitedly wonders if he should bring the family head something sweet to sweeten the deal. Back in the kitchen, Lion wears an apron and begins kneading dough on the counter while the maid watches. Lion carefully rolls out the smooth dough with a wooden rolling pin. Lion explains that cookies are perfect because they aren't too heavy and have just the right amount of sweetness, which even his grandfather would enjoy. The maid suddenly asks him who is Sylvia. Lion instantly freezes, blushing furiously and sweat dropping as the unexpected question catches him completely off guard. Lion quickly turns away to hide his red face and flustered expression. The maid tilts her head, thoroughly confused by Lion's sudden reaction. Lion changes the subject, grabbing some sweet potatoes to add to his recipe. Looking at the ingredients, the maid remarks that sweet potato cookies are quite an unusual combination, while Lion thinks to himself that this is the perfect chance. Lion chops the banana sweet potato on a cutting board, thinking, instead of sugar, I'll chop up some banana sweet potato and put it on the dough. Looking at the cute dough shapes, Lion thinks, oh, these look pretty cute. I should ask Mudu to make me some cookie molds later. He places the cookies in the oven, watching them bake to a golden brown as a delicious sweet aroma fills the kitchen. The system displays the item description for the special banana sweet potato chip cookies, which reduce fatigue and provide synergistic effects when consumed with a beverage. Amazed by his culinary skills, the maid Elvia admires his work, saying, "You are truly amazing." Lion proudly offers a chick-shaped cookie, saying, "So please try one," to which Elvia happily replies, "Shall I?" After taking a bite, Lion is delighted and thinks, "Oh, I think this tastes even better than the chocolate chip cookies from my past life." Elvia smiles warmly as she speaks to Lion, deeply impressed by the incredible taste of the cookies. Lion laughs cheerfully as Elvia thanks him, noting that his cooking has been a huge help. Startled by Lion's next words, Elvia tilts her head in surprise and asks, "Pardon?" Lion smiles brightly and replies, "I still have something else to make." Standing at the kitchen counter, Lion thinks, I couldn't just open my inventory with Elvia standing right there. Excitedly starting his next creation, Lion says, "Next up, a beverage," as the system prompts that it will provide synergistic effects when consumed with a beverage. Lion accesses his alchemical interface and selects a golden glowing root star anise to use as an ingredient. The recipe description for the crimson drink appears, requiring lesser health potions, aqua rosemary oil, fresh fruit, and root star anise. Looking at the list, Chibi Lion tilts his head and wonders, but these ingredients look familiar. Where have I seen them before? Smelling a ripe orange from a bowl of fresh citrus fruits, Lion smiles and thinks, great, the ingredients are incredibly fresh. Ready to begin, Lion leans over the counter with a determined smile and says, let's begin. He carefully slices the lemons on a cutting board as a pot of water begins to bubble and boil on the stove. Following the recipe instructions, Lion thinks, once the oranges and lemons are slightly cooked, add the root star anise, dropping the ingredient into the steaming pot. The golden orange liquid bubbles vigorously as the rich, aromatic flavors blend together. A deep crimson liquid splashes dramatically, signaling the successful brewing process. Lion carefully strains the vibrant red potion through a fine sieve to ensure it is perfectly smooth. The gorgeous crimson beverage is poured into a clean glass as magical green and pink droplets swirl around it. The system displays the item description for the Alchemist's Training Support Beverage, which increases the efficiency of subsequent swordsmanship or mana training when consumed warm. Lion prepares a serving tray with the freshly brewed tea and cookies, humming happily as he works. The system showcases the item description for Lion Asteri's Special Beverage Set, which restores fatigue and boosts combat-related training efficiency. Holding the beautifully arranged tray with a bright, confident smile, Lion is ready to present his creation. The scene transitions to a grand, elegantly decorated study with towering bookshelves and high ceilings. Lion politely calls out, "Grandfather, are you busy?" as the stern family head sits at his desk. Walking inside with the tray, Lion is greeted by his grandfather, who asks, "What is that you are carrying in here?" The grandfather looks up from his paperwork, observing his grandson with a serious expression. Lion offers a warm, polite smile as he approaches his grandfather's desk. Setting the tray down, Lion explains, "This is a beverage I made using the potion I crafted last time, and I baked some cookies because I thought they would go well together."
The grandfather looks at the delicious assortment of cookies and tea, calmly replying, "Yes."
Lion smiles gently, happy to share his progress with his beloved grandfather. The grandfather silently picks up a bear-shaped cookie with a glowing red heart, inspecting it closely. He opens his mouth and takes a crisp, satisfying bite of the cookie. Suddenly, the grandfather's eyes widen in sheer shock as he is completely overwhelmed by the taste. He marvels at the complex flavor, thinking the subtle, sweet aroma of sweet potato spreads giving a pleasant boost to my energy. It is entirely different from a simple baked banana. The shiny, beautifully glazed bear-shaped cookie looks incredibly appetizing under the warm light. Lion notices his cooking talent growth requirement notification and happily thinks, seeing the experience points shoot up, he must really like them. What a relief. Lion looks on with a curious expression as his grandfather remains quiet. Lion chuckles sheepishly, scratching his head and saying, "Haha, I really can't hide anything from you, grandfather." The grandfather stares back, looking genuinely surprised by his grandson's honesty. Lion asks, "The family attends the coming-of-age ceremony as well, right?" To which his grandfather answers, "But..." Lion smiles warmly and says, "I want our whole family to be there with bright smiles," leaving his grandfather deeply moved as he clasps his hands together. Outwardly maintaining his stern composure, the grandfather secretly weeps tears of joy inside, dramatically thinking, who raised him so beautifully? He reflects on his grandson's relationship, thinking, they could easily fight over the position of family head, and I was worried because they seemed distant lately. Yet they built such a strong brotherly bond without me knowing. Looking at the proud and kind young man standing before him, the grandfather warmly concludes, "I have one more thing to be proud of." With a bright, warm smile, Lion happily thanks the person before him. Suddenly surprised, Lion's sweat drops and asks, "Pardon?" Back in the grand study, the grandfather looks at Lion, wondering who his grandson takes after since he seems to have no greed at all, despite gifts being the highlight of the coming-of-age ceremony. The majestic Asteri Castle stands beautifully under a bright morning sun as the narration explains that the ceremony is not merely a simple ritual. In the Empire, the most elegant way to display one's wealth was to obtain whatever unique and precious jewels the celebrant desired, leaving the grandfather to wonder why Lion claims to need nothing. Clasping his hands, the grandfather determinedly reasons that Lion must want him to figure out the perfect gift on his own and do an outstanding job. Surrounded by an ominous dark aura, the serious grandfather deeply contemplates his options, while Lion sweat drops and nervously takes his leave. Left alone in his grand study, the grandfather sits at his desk, deeply lost in thought. With a serious expression, the grandfather holds his chin and anxiously wonders what he should do to prepare the perfect gift. Walking down the elegant hallway, Lion ponders what he should do next as he leaves his grandfather's study. Lion walks cheerfully down the castle corridor under a warm, peaceful light. In another room filled with stacks of paperwork, a young man sits at his desk looking exhausted and massaging his forehead. Lion suddenly bursts through the double doors carrying a tray, calling out loudly, while the young man is startled and flings his papers into the air. Walking into the messy office, Lion chuckles and asks what all the paperwork is about, while the young man explains his situation. The young man coughs politely into his hand, looking slightly flustered and embarrassed. Lion proudly and dramatically presents his tray of tea and cookies with a bright wink, surprising his brother. Sitting on the comfortable purple sofas, the young man takes a big bite of the delicious rabbit-shaped cookie while Lion watches happily. Eating the cookie, the young man is instantly shocked by its incredible taste. Lion chats enthusiastically about his cookies while his brother looks on, deeply impressed and touched. Lion smiles warmly and gently, happy to see his brother enjoying the treats. Closing his eyes with a warm smile, the young man is deeply moved by how much his brother cares for him. Suddenly, Lion's expression turns dramatic and tense as he sweat drops, wondering if he has interrupted something. Holding his chin, Lion listens intently as his brother explains that it's because of the upcoming family ritual. A grand, towering library of magic is shown, described as a labyrinth that guides one to the magic they need most, adapting perfectly to the user's level. The narration explains that while the labyrinth becomes an impregnable maze if forced, it remains a simple library if accepted, allowing whoever reaches the end to bring back a special item. Hearing this, Lion pulls a comical, completely blank and dumbfounded expression. His brother suddenly slaps a colorful design sheet onto the table, announcing that this is the outfit their grandfather prepared for the ceremony. Lion stares in utter horror at the drawing of a ridiculous, garish outfit with red high heels, realizing the ceremony will be a complete disaster. Both brothers look pale, exhausted, and completely defeated, agreeing that they must stop this. In complete panic, they grab their hair and scream in frustration, wondering why their grandfather is doing this all of a sudden. Lion clenches his fist with a sheepish smile, remembering a chibi silver-haired lady who had warned him about this. Sometime later, Lion stands in a bright forest wearing a white hooded cloak, warmly greeting a little girl named Rhea as two children run up to him excitedly. With a cheerful smile, Lion holds up a clear bag filled with his freshly baked, cute animal-shaped cookies. The two children happily stuff their faces with the sweet cookies, completely delighted by the taste. A blonde woman looks on with wide, startled eyes, surprised by Lion's unexpected visit and kindness. The children run around playing happily while the woman looks at Lion in surprise. Lion recalls seeing an incredibly talented tailor during volunteer work who could take measurements and craft custom clothes for children on the spot. Lion explains that the artisan could whip up beautiful outfits from mere scraps of fabric, prompting him to ask the woman if finding this tailor would be difficult. The blonde woman holds her chin, looking slightly hesitant and worried. Lion stands outside a run-down, dusty old shop under a windy, overcast sky, looking surprised. A worn wooden sign with spiderwebs hangs precariously in front of the quiet shop. Suddenly, the creaky sign clatters violently as if it's about to fall, making Lion's sweat drop. Opening the door, Lion steps into the dark, dusty shop filled with rows of empty mannequins, wondering why such a talented tailor lives in a rundown place. A pale, gaunt man with shadowed eyes suddenly appears behind Lion, speaking in a ghostly tone. In a flash, the tailor strikes a fabulously dramatic pose, sparkling with golden energy as a startled Lion screams in shock. The tailor dramatically inspects Lion, commenting on his eye color, while a sweat-dropping Lion tries to pull his hood back up. Lion scratches his head sheepishly, smiling as he tries to explain his visit. The tailor calms down, smiling warmly as he asks what brings such a noble personage all the way to his humble shop. The tailor suddenly gasps in shock and covers his mouth, looking completely startled by Lion's response. The tailor politely gestures for Lion to follow him into the shop so they can sit down and talk. Lion looks around the shop in awe, marveling at the sewing machine, colorful spools of thread, and shelves lined with impressive awards. He wonders, wow, isn't that the award from the Empire's most famous competition? In the cluttered room, the tailor stands in the center while Lion approaches. Lion smiles warmly and says, "Perfect! I brought some cookies, so let's have them together." The tailor pours steaming tea from a teapot into a cracked white teacup, admitting, "But my circumstances are quite modest," to which Lion gently reassures, "It's fine." As Lion presents the assortment of freshly baked cookies, the tailor's eyes widen in surprise as he prepares to take one. The tailor holds a bear-shaped cookie with a glowing red heart in his hand, thinking back and whispering, "That bread was truly delicious." He takes a bite, and a bright, warm light surrounds him as he excitedly exclaims, "How lively!" The narrator describes the exquisite texture of the treat. It starts with a crisp crunch, then melts away in an instant. As the complex flavors bloom, he thinks, "At first, it felt like a simple, handsome youth." The scene transitions to a fantasy visualization as the tailor dramatically thinks, "But now, it's like," while a romantic wind blows, leading to a crown prince who has instantly lost his heart to a country girl. In his imaginative vision, a crown prince in splendid white armor kneels in a lush green meadow, holding the hand of a simple country maiden and looking up at her with starry eyes. The description reads, "A flavor as thrilling as the flutter of his very first love." The prince's face is flushed with a warm blush as he smiles tenderly, completely swept away by the magical taste of first love. Suddenly snapped back to reality, the tailor is completely overwhelmed by the explosive flavor, screaming in absolute ecstasy as golden energy sparkles around him. Lion sits comfortably on the couch, holding his teacup with a calm, gentle smile, while the narrator explains, though they call him the outcast of the Asteri family, he is actually a complete mystery, with nothing yet revealed. Wiping tears of pure joy from his face with a handkerchief, the tailor is deeply touched by the delicious treats, while Lion chuckles happily. With a bright blush on his cheeks and eyes sparkling with passion, the tailor tightly clutches his handkerchief and looks completely re-energized. Lion watches the tailor with a slightly surprised but pleasant expression, waiting for him to speak. Sitting formally on the worn sofa with mannequins in the background, the tailor looks serious and hesitant as he prepares to explain. However, Lion holds his teacup and asks with curiosity, "Why is that?" To which the tailor replies, that is... Looking down in deep shame, the tailor tightly clenches his fists, and Lion softly murmurs, "Ah, I see." The narrative box explains the underlying prejudice of high society. A sense of entitlement makes it easy to look down on others. The narration continues, explaining the nobles' anger. They think it ruins their prestige if a luxury like clothing, which only nobles should enjoy, is sold to commoners by someone like him, as Lion smiles with a mix of amusement and disbelief. Setting his teacup down with a soft click, Lion holds up a hand to interrupt the tailor's explanation, saying, "Hold on." The tailor looks away in dejection and stands up slightly from the sofa, explaining, "So I only have clothes for commoners left." Suddenly, the tailor pulls back a gray curtain to reveal a hidden back room, startling Lion, who stands up in surprise. Lion's eyes widen and his face flushes with pure excitement as he stares into the room, gasping, "Incredible!" The back room is filled with racks of beautifully crafted clothes, each glowing with high-tier system notifications like Skilled Tailor's Ready-Made Cotton Pants and Skilled Tailor's Ready-Made Bolero, prompting Lion to think it's a festival of stars. Looking down at the exquisite garments from a high angle, Lion stands completely speechless and amazed by the sheer quantity of high-quality clothes. Inspecting the items closely, Lion observes the detailed sewing and impeccable quality, thinking, a 2-star item with fabric like this? That means everything else was flawless. Gently touching one of the coats hanging on the rack, Lion's eyes sparkle with excitement as he wonders, what if someone like him had access to high-quality fabric? Hearing Lion's words, the tailor flinches in shock, his face turning pale with apprehension. The tailor warns Lion with a worried expression, "This is an incredible opportunity for me, but you will surely be humiliated." With a confident and determined expression, Lion holds up 3 fingers as he prepares to make a proposal. The tailor gulps nervously, watching Lion intently as the tension in the room rises. Lion steps forward dramatically, surrounded by a warm, golden aura, and confidently says, "I will take full responsibility, so just tell me if you want to take this leap or not." Deeply moved by Lion's words, the tailor's heart pounds rapidly, and he clenches his fist tightly as he contemplates the desire to make beautiful clothes with fine fabric. Lion's reassuring thoughts echo in the room. You don't have to worry about anything else. Just show off your talent. The text emphasizes the irresistible nature of the proposal. What tailor in the world could refuse such an alluring offer? The tailor's eyes light up with burning passion, and a wide smile spreads across his face as he hears Lion's kind words. In a sudden burst of energy, the tailor rushes to his desk, pulling out a blank sketchbook and a quill, and asks, "What kind of clothes do you want? What details should we include?" As the tailor furiously scribbles down notes, Lion stands beside him, calmly listing his design requirements one by one. The tailor gasps in shock, his eyes practically popping out as he asks, "The Asteri family will wear the clothes I make?" To which a chibi-style Lion cheerfully replies, "Yes, is there a problem?" With a confident and handsome smile, Lion looks at the tailor and asks him what he thinks. Scratching his head nervously, the tailor's sweat drops but replies, "Of course." Standing proudly at his desk in the warm afternoon light, the tailor holds his feather quill ready, prepared to pour his entire soul into the new designs. With a bright, passionate expression, the tailor prepares to draw, raising his quill high with excitement. The tailor moves at lightning speed, creating a flurry of sketches as papers fly around him, while Lion reaches into his bag and asks, "Do you have a specific fabric in mind?" Lion pulls out a thick, beautifully bound book with intricate golden patterns, completely stunning the tailor. The tailor stands frozen in utter awe, his hands clasped together as he stares at the legendary book glowing with a divine golden light. Holding the magnificent, ancient-looking book with a cheerful chibi smile, Lion gently says, "Of course, go ahead." With trembling hands, the tailor gently reaches out to open the cover of the ancient book. As the book is opened, a blinding, magical light bursts forth, illuminating the tailor's face with sheer wonder. The narration reveals the incredible materials contained within. And elf's hair, famous for being crafted by only a select few elves. Even fairy's breath, painstakingly crafted by mages. To think these fabrics actually exist in real life. The tailor gasps in shock, his face flushed and sweat dropping in utter disbelief as Lion stands before him with a gentle, reassuring smile. Looking down at the open legendary book, the tailor is completely stunned, stammering, "Huh?" as he freezes in place. Lion and the tailor lean over the desk together, staring intently at the magnificent, glowing book of ancient fabrics. Lion touches his chin thoughtfully, carefully studying the exquisite fabric samples displayed on the pages. A system item description appears for Archmage's Devoted Love, a legendary worsted yarn woven with powerful protective magic, though the recipe remains locked until Lion's tailoring skill is unlocked. Reading the incredible description, Lion smiles and thinks to himself, and the description mentions the Archmage. That means Lion turns to the tailor with a bright smile and asks, "Andri, could you make the clothes using this fabric?" prompting Andri to enthusiastically pump his fist. Suddenly, a voice from the doorway interrupts them, saying, "I heard what was happening, so I'm a bit late bringing some supplies." Lion and Andri both turn around in surprise as the curtain is pulled back. They gasp in absolute shock, their eyes wide and faces flush with excitement as they look out at the incredible scene. Outside the shop, a massive caravan of covered wagons has arrived in the lush green meadow, bustling with workers unloading a vast amount of supplies. In the crates, brand new, beautifully ornate sewing machines and colorful spools of thread are neatly packed, as a voice says, "I heard you found a tailor you liked, brother." Highly polished mannequins and elegant full-length mirrors are unpacked from the shipments, with the voice continuing, "Since it's for your one and only coming-of-age ceremony." Lion's handsome younger brother, dressed in a sleek white suit with gold accents, stands outside the wagon and smiles warmly. Lion points outside with a sweat drop, asking his brother about the massive delivery, while the tailor watches them in utter disbelief. Overwhelmed with profound gratitude and joy, tears stream down Andri's face as he smiles ecstatically in a bright golden aura. The scene shows Andri's newly renovated and bustling double-story tailor shop, surrounded by supply wagons and active workers. Inside the beautifully lit display window of the shop, two elegant, high-class dresses are proudly shown on mannequins. Inside the spacious and beautifully decorated shop, Andri stands proudly and declares, "I, Andri, will do my absolute best to craft a true masterpiece," while Lion stands on the pedestal being measured and gently replies, "Don't overwork yourself." Lion's younger brother suddenly sweat drops and asks, "Could you teach me some tailoring skills when you have time?" completely shocking both Lion and Andri, who stammers, "How could someone like me teach you, young master?" Andri frantically waves his hands in mock panic, arguing, "And sewing machines are surprisingly prone to accidents," as he humorously imagines working with multiple arms, while Lion calmly reassures him, "It's fine." Lion stands proudly with his hands on his hips, smiling brightly at Andri, who looks back with a nervous but touched sweat drop. As Andri carefully takes his measurements, Lion explains his reasoning. "Why? Well, speaking with you made me realize how much skill and passion you have, and how incredible your eye for detail is. You're putting your heart into making these clothes, and it would be a shame if I couldn't appreciate your hard work. I figured that to truly understand a creator's intent, I should first learn the craft." Deeply moved by Lion's profound respect for his artistry, Andri sheds tears of joy and exclaims, "How could you think of something so profound?" Clasping his hand over his heart, Andri closes his eyes and bows slightly, deeply touched by Lion's sincere words. In a cute chibi style, the three of them chat happily as Andri gestures around the shop, saying, "If you're curious about anything inside, please feel free to look around and try things out." As the sun begins to set, a warm golden twilight washes over the beautiful exterior of Andri's renovated workshop. Walking through the quiet shop carrying a leather bag, Lion looks around in admiration and thinks, "It's amazing no matter how many times I look at it." Lion stops at a workbench to inspect a pattern for artisan's worn cotton pants pattern, noting its poor quality but flawless execution, and wonders, how did he make such a great piece of clothing with low-quality fabric? With an excited smile, Lion picks up the dark fabric and says, "Let's see." Lion holds the fabric in his hands, thoughtfully deciding, "Since I haven't properly learned yet and lack the basics, using something too convenient feels like cheating. I should start with hand sewing." Opening a luxurious leather case, Lion smiles brightly and says, "I have just the thing," as he reveals the Artisan's Repair Kit, a special tool that can repair items of artisan grade or lower when one's skills fall short. Lion nervously begins to sew, sweating slightly as he struggles to thread his needle, thinking, "When else would I get a chance to use it?" Suddenly, the needle begins to glow with a magical, vibrant rainbow light, causing Lion to gasp in surprise. "Huh?" Lion's eyes widen in absolute amazement as the thread magically guides itself through the eye of the needle on its own, and he wonders, it even threads itself automatically? Lion sits quietly at his desk, bathed in the warm sunset light, preparing to work as he says, "Now, let's see." Fully immersed in his work, Lion hand sews at rapid speed, sweat dropping in pure excitement as he thinks, "Why is this so fun?" Carefully pulling the thread through the fabric, Lion realizes, "I thought fiddling with such tiny things would be frustrating and annoying, but it actually calms my mind. As I focus, my stitches are getting more even and I'm picking up speed." A magical blue guideline appears on the cloth to direct his cuts, prompting Lion to think, and I can actually see a guideline. Is this also the power of the magic tool? This is easier than I thought. A system notification confirms that his cotton pants pattern is now at an 80% completion rate. Lion proudly holds up the completed trousers, looking through them with a flushed, satisfied smile as he admires his first hand-sewn creation. Suddenly, the sound of a door sliding open startles Lion, making him look back in surprise as he gasps, "Ah!" His younger brother stands at the door, smiling gently as he says, "Not at all. I couldn't bring myself to interrupt you while you were so focused, brother," while a sparkling Andri clutches his hands in awe beside him. Andri carefully inspects Lion's handiwork, gasping in complete shock. "Oh, it's still a bit uneven, but this is quite excellent." Completely overwhelmed by dramatic inspiration, Andri screams, "Oh my goodness, heavens!" and dashes frantically back to his desk, leaving the two brothers sweat-dropping in confusion. With a passionate fire burning behind him, Andri furiously scribbles new designs with his quill, shouting, "This is what I had forgotten! Ah, hand sewing is the very foundation of custom formalwear. I've been making nothing but ready-to-wear clothes lately, so I almost forgot." Lion smiles sheepishly, sweat dropping at Andri's intense artistic frenzy, and sighs. It looks like he's lost in his own world again, doesn't it? While his brother watches with a gentle smile. Lion turns around to look back at his younger brother with a warm and affectionate smile. His younger brother looks back at him with a slightly nervous sweat drop, remaining quiet. The scene transitions to a grand, luxurious estate where a butler opens the double doors and respectfully announces, "Marquise." An elegant, elderly man with gray hair and a monocle sits at his desk, holding a document and signing it with a feather quill as he calmly responds, "Very well." Accompanied by his butler, the elderly gray-haired Marquis walks down a grand, high-ceilinged palace corridor illuminated by elegant chandeliers. Walking side by side with his master, the butler remarks, "It is rare for the three of you to dine together." The Marquis lets out a weary sigh and responds, "As if I enjoy working all the time." Looking out the window at the starry night sky, the Marquis grumbles, "Those imperial family bastards." Exasperated by his endless duties, the Marquis complains, "How much longer do I even have to live? I just want to spend time with my grandchildren now," prompting the butler to ask in surprise, "What are you talking about?" As they approach the grand double doors of the dining hall, the Marquis declares, "The direct lineage of the house has gathered with great effort. As the family head, I cannot miss this." And the butler respectfully replies, "Indeed, my lord." Standing tall with a stern and majestic demeanor, the Marquis enters the dining hall as the announcement reads, "The family head has arrived." The Marquis reflects in silent thought, whether it is because of my old age or because my grandson has started acting so affectionate. Looking over the lavish dining table where his two grandsons await, the Marquis continues to think, "I wish to spend the rest of my days in peace with the treasures my daughter left behind." To do that, welcoming his grandfather with a bright, warm smile, Lion happily calls out, "Welcome, grandfather," while the family head thinks to himself, "No one must ever discover that child's potential." A glittering feast of exquisite dishes, including roasted meats, fresh salads, pasta, and freshly baked bread, is beautifully laid out across the long dining table. Lion smiles warmly across the table, but Rixel responds with a subtle, quiet expression, causing Lion to look back with a soft, questioning, "Oh." Lion recalls how things used to be. "Come to think of it, I used to skip most of my meals, or only eat a convalescent meal, and grandfather usually ate at the Imperial Palace." Staring down at the empty space beneath the grand dining table, Lion realizes Rixel must have eaten here all by himself. Feeling a deep wave of sympathy, Lion looks at his brother and thinks he must have been so lonely. Sitting silently opposite his brother, Rixel keeps his gaze lowered, remaining completely quiet. Watching Rixel sit in silence, Lion feels a pang of sorrow. How hard must it have been for him to endure all that alone? Under the table, Rixel tightly clenches his fist as Lion decides, "For brother's sake, I should ask the family head to let us spend more time together as a family." Overjoyed by his heartwarming resolution to bring the family closer, Lion smiles brightly and thinks, "Rixel, you don't have to eat alone anymore." The Marquis takes his seat at the head of the table as the butler assists him, while both Lion and Rixel sit on either side, waiting respectfully. Closing his eyes, the Marquis calmly announces, "Let's eat," prompting both grandsons to pick up their utensils. The brothers begin to cut into their perfectly cooked, juicy steaks, the gentle clatter of silverware echoing through the quiet room. Breaking the silence, the Marquis asks, "Rixel, is the task I assigned you going well?" To which Rixel confidently replies, "Yes, I will handle it flawlessly." A quiet and formal silence falls over the dining table once more as they continue eating their meal in relative silence. The Marquis silently worries as he eats, thinking, "Still, it is your coming-of-age ceremony after a 3-year delay. I was wondering if your health is all right, and I can at least ask what kind of gift you want, can I?" Feeling the stifling, intense atmosphere, Rixel thinks, "This isn't the kind of atmosphere brother wants. I should bring up a topic to talk about," and nervously begins, Both Lion and his grandfather suddenly look up in utter surprise, startled by Rixel's sudden initiative to speak. The Marquis stays quiet, raising his wine glass to take a slow sip as he waits to hear what Rixel has to say. Rixel looks over at his grandfather and reflects, as expected, talking about mother makes him uncomfortable. Rixel continues, "The fabric among the ones you brought that was exceptionally glowing." Rixel looks a bit nervous, sweating slightly as he carefully brings up the mysterious glowing material. Lion recalls back to his childhood days when the tailor told him, "Back in my glory days, there was a fabric that a certain young lady loved to use." Lion smiles softly as he listens to his brother speak, pleased to see him opening up. The Marquis looks down solemnly at his plate as Rixel realizes that talking about mother, an awkward, heavy blue aura settles over the table as Rixel thinks was probably the topic our family wanted to avoid the most. Looking down at the warm, golden soup on the table, Lion reflects, "But we cannot bury it and look away forever. Only when we can speak comfortably about those who have passed can we truly comfort one another." Staring at his grandfather with a gentle but resolute gaze, Lion thinks, "What we need right now is an opportunity to open up and talk, so I will use these matching family outfits to heal our relationship and start talking again." Breaking the heavy silence, the Marquis surprises everyone by declaring, "I did indeed craft that fabric myself," leaving both of his grandsons wide-eyed in shock. Completely dumbfounded by the revelation, Lion and Rixel turn to stare at their grandfather in sheer disbelief. Gently swirling the red wine in his glass, the Marquis quietly adds, "There is no grand reason." The scene shows a flashback of the glowing, exquisite fabric as the Marquis explains, "So I selected the finest magic wool, placed protection magic on every single strand, and had the fabric woven." A nostalgic memory reveals the younger Marquis standing beside a beautiful, elegant woman dressed in a magnificent flowing gown. Staring down at his wine glass with a softened, melancholic expression, the Marquis reminisces about his late daughter. Rixel sits quietly, deeply touched and amazed to finally hear the truth behind his mother's cherished fabric. Looking at Rixel, the Marquis feels a sudden wave of deep remorse, thinking, "Rixel never showed it, but he must have been so curious about his mother. I let my own grief leave my grandchildren so lonely." Trying to hide his emotional vulnerability, the Marquis raises his glass and says, "There is plenty, so do not worry about useless things." The Marquis flinches in surprise and sweat drops as Rixel suddenly makes an unexpected request. The servants watch with warm smiles as Rixel speaks up saying, "Of course not, you must wear it with us, grandfather." Lion points a playful finger at his grandfather and enthusiastically exclaims, "That is a great idea!" leaving the old Marquis sweat dropping in hilarious embarrassment. Fully enjoying the warm, lively atmosphere, Lion bursts into a brilliant, happy laugh, his eyes crinkling with pure joy. Lion feels a wave of relief now that he has secured his grandfather's permission, realizing he no longer has to worry about the Marquis's terrible fashion sense as their dinner conversation begins to flow naturally. Smiling brightly with relief, Lion happily realizes that he can now fully focus on preparing for the upcoming coming-of-age ceremony, feeling that everything is turning out perfectly. With all the preparations set in motion, everything in the grand estate begins to proceed smoothly. In a comical turn of events, even the stern family head agrees to be measured, leaving the emotional tailor trembling in a mixture of fear and pure gratitude. The entire mansion busily prepares for the grand occasion, with maids and servants beautifully decorating the halls and hanging elegant curtains for the coming-of-age ceremony. Supported by his family's boundless care, Lion recalls Rixel telling him not to overexert himself and to leave the tedious work to him, while his grandfather sternly assures him that money is of no concern in their household. Blessed with the perfect environment, Lion happily reflects that he can spend all of his time focusing on mastering his tailoring skills. With absolute focus, Lion carefully handles the needle and thread, his hands working diligently as he stitches the white fabric. A brilliant magical notification appears before Lion, announcing that he has unlocked the tailoring talent and that his proficiency has successfully reached Apprentice Level 1. Examining his completed work, Lion notes that while it may not match his blacksmithing skills, the hand-sewn shirt has a decent completion rate. However, he wonders why his talent hasn't undergone a full awakening despite starting completely from scratch without a sewing machine. Gripped by sudden panic and despair, Lion clutches his head in frustration, anxiously wondering if he simply lacks the talent for tailoring. Lion contemplates whether his struggles are due to his crafting tools or if he needs a mentor to guide him, much like Elvia or Mudu did before. Reflecting on his past experiences, Lion recalls that alchemy relied far more heavily on the quality of the tools than on having a teacher. Overwhelmed by confusion and creative block, Lion clutches his head and groans in comical despair. Lion's dramatic frustration is suddenly interrupted when a dark-haired, red-eyed maid slides open the door and quietly calls out, "Young master." Looking tense and uneasy, the maid stands at the doorway with a worried, sweating expression. Noticing her troubled demeanor, Lion turns to her in surprise and asks himself what could be causing her to make such a strange expression. With a grim and somber look casting a shadow over her face, the maid silently conveys that something has gone terribly wrong.